Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
So, boy, we got a lot to get into. Do you know what this weekend is?
What's that?
Take a guess.
Something special?
It is the last weekend of the year without Tennessee Titan football. It is the last weekend. I know they don't play the weekend between the last preseason game and the first game, but we'll have college football that weekend. And I know they have a bye week, but we can use the bye week. This is the last weekend of 2024 without Tennessee Titan football because they play San Francisco next Saturday. So who's excited? So I want to start on this. Yesterday, it came down via Paul Kaharski, paulkaharski.com. It came down that DeAndre Hopkins was going to be out for the next 4 to 6 weeks with a knee strain. Now, we don't know exactly what it is. I talked to somebody yesterday who said, a grade 2 LCL strain / tear, which that DeAndre should be good to go in about 4 to 6 weeks. And then again, the person I talked to who is a high-level trainer, as in takes care of pro athletes. There are a lot that live in the city. He takes care of a lot of them. He said, well, who knows with the Titans training staff, which Joe Rexroad, the expert on training staffs today, was all like, the training staff doesn't have anything to do with preventing injuries, which is by far the stupidest opinion I've ever heard, but that's his business, not mine. So the news came down about DeAndre, and yesterday everybody said, oh my God, DeAndre Hopkins. I saw one guy say, I am going to go jump off the bridge. Well, Adam Schefter reported on it, and TD reported on it, and the Titans are rather optimistic that DeAndre Hopkins will be ready to start the regular season against the Chicago Bears. I know I don't trust the Titans when it comes to a lot of things, but the Titans, I would argue, are probably not making that up. If you've got a training staff that people already are kind of skeptical about, the last thing you want to do is say, we're optimistic he'll be back in 4 weeks, and then all of a sudden it be week 8 and you're still waiting on DeAndre. So I think the Titans see the DeAndre injury, and as many people were panicking yesterday, now we did not panic when the news broke, but as many people out there were panicking yesterday or were acting like this is some sort of monumental moment for Treylon Burks. I'm not convinced this is that. But as many people were talking about this DeAndre 4 to 6 week injury as if it were a 4 to 6 week injury during the season, I don't think that's warranted. So once again, I'm not panicking about the Titans losing DeAndre Hopkins for the immediate future. But I'm not going to do one thing that would be very easy to do. I'm not going to go full homer and say this is a good thing for the Titans. It'd be very easy to go full homer and say, you know what, guys, this is actually a good thing that DeAndre got hurt. It's kind of like when the Predators have a big game during the regular season and everybody tells us it's a big game. It's a big game tonight against Winnipeg. And then they lose. And it's like, well, it was only one game. In fact, it was actually good because no, we don't do that. But I do think that 2 good things could come of the DeAndre Hopkins injury. Number one, Will Levis gets to spend the next 4 weeks at least primarily focused on getting his work in with Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd. He's banked all these reps with DeAndre Hopkins between last year as the starting quarterback, this offseason, knowing he was going to be the starting quarterback, and even so far in training camp. They had the Cabo trip, the Vandy workouts, OTAs, you name it. I do not question the chemistry or relationship between Will Levis and DeAndre Hopkins. If anything, last year, when Will Levis became the starting quarterback, I think he became too reliant on DeAndre Hopkins. If you go back to that Steelers game, at the end, DeAndre had to play defensive back in order to keep passes from getting picked off. And if you go back to the Texan game where the Titans wore the Oiler throwbacks, the one at home, there was a ball that could have been a touchdown for Treylon Burks, but Levis was so dedicated to getting the ball to Hopkins that he threw it into double coverage for an interception. So I'm not worried about Levis getting his timing down, Levis getting his rhythm, Levis getting that chemistry developed with DeAndre Hopkins. He's already got it. But with Ridley and Boyd, that is always going to be a work in progress. Most teams do not take the preseason seriously in the NFL. And I know Brian Callahan has said that he thinks it's important, but I don't know how seriously Brian Callahan plans on taking the preseason. Is this a, hey, we're going to play 9 plays and then all the starters come out? Is this going to be a, no, they're going to play 2 quarters? I don't know. But they need the reps. And because there's not really a preseason in the NFL, I think it takes about 6 weeks for a new adjustment. And I'm talking about 6 game weeks. I think it takes about 6 weeks for a team to get used to a new big-time adjustment. That's why the Detroit Lions 2 years ago got hot at the end of the year because Ben Johnson, their new offensive coordinator, who I think is kind of the brains behind the operation, Ben Johnson had now fully become indoctrined into the Lions, and they knew him and he knew them. So that's the first thing. For the next 4 weeks or 4 to 6 weeks, if I'm Will Levis, I'm worrying about Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd. Not worried about Burks. He's got enough time with him. Not worried about NWI. He's got enough time with him. So instead of thinking, oh, okay, I'm the quarterback, and now I've got to work on the protections, and I've got to work on the relationship with the 2 tight ends, and the 3 receivers, and the 2 running backs, I think for the next month, Levis can really just hone in on Ridley and Boyd, knowing that when DeAndre shows up, DeAndre's a pro. DeAndre doesn't need to play in the preseason anyways, although I would prefer he do it, but he's not going to. DeAndre will be fine. The second thing that, again, is at least, I would say, somewhat of a positive with this, is that I now think Treylon Burks can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Now, I don't think Burks needed to see the light at the end of the tunnel, per se, because clearly he had shown up in shape and he had shown up dedicated to football, and the coaching staff and the general manager and everybody else, they were all impressed with him in the offseason. And I think it was Rand Carthon that said that he was sending pictures showing off his improved physique, during the break. So clearly this is important to Treylon Burks. Now, is he going to make it? I don't know. But now he can really see the light at the end of the tunnel. I can't imagine that it is easy for a young receiver to see Calvin Ridley signed, Tyler Boyd signed, even though the coach comes out publicly and says, Treylon Burks is going to be a big part of our offense. I mean, he's not stupid. He knows there's one football. He knows DeAndre's ahead of him, Ridley's ahead of him, Boyd's ahead of him. The tight ends are going to get more playing time than him. They just signed an $8 million running back who is better at catching passes out of the backfield than Derrick Henry to go with the other running back who they're already throwing the ball to out of the backfield. With there being one football to go around, it's hard for Treylon Burks to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. And it's hard for a coach, I would assume, to sit there with Burks and say, hey, give it an A-plus effort every day. Because even though we sign guys over you, if somebody gets hurt, we want you to go in there and we want you to play a big role. But now with the DeAndre injury, I think more than anything else, this highlights what I said to TD before we knew about the DeAndre injury yesterday, which is it's probably not likely that all 3 receivers are going to be healthy for 17 games. This is the NFL. It is not likely that that's going to happen. But it's hard if you're Burks to see DeAndre's salary, to see Ridley's salary, to see Boyd in the slot, and to think, well, I guess I can be active on game day if I can play the gunner position. And to his credit, he had 2 choices this offseason. Ian, you know what those 2 choices Treylon Burks had were?
Get better, get bitter.
He had the choice to get better or get bitter. And clearly, he chose the path of getting better. Now, will that mean that he's going to make it? I don't know. But now he gets the opportunity in the preseason games. He gets the opportunity in training camp. And he sees the light at the end of the tunnel. He sees how one minor little something or another, and you're in there. And they're depending on you the same way they depended on you last year and the way they depended on you the year before that. So again, I am not going full homer. I am not telling you DeAndre Hopkins' 4 to 6 week injury is a good thing. I'm not doing that. But I do think it presents the Titans with an opportunity. And it presents Burks with an opportunity. And it shows Burks that the opportunity is right there in front of him. If Burks is going to make it, this is the opportunity he needs. And if he does show up in training camp, in the preseason games, then that will give Brian Callahan the ability to really carve out a role for him. Because as much as Brian Callahan says he's carving out a role for Burks, I'm not sure I totally buy that. Again, there's one football. Who do you want getting the ball? Who do you rely on more right now? Burks or Spears? Burks or Ridley? Burks or Hopkins? Burks or Boyd? But if Burks goes out there, keeps doing what he's doing, and he does it in the preseason games, I can see, hey, we've always said there's a lot of talent with that kid. So he gets an opportunity. And for Levis, he gets an opportunity to really hone in on Ridley and Boyd. So it's a long-winded way of saying this is by far, again, not a good thing, but it's not the end of the world either. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. I heard our midday show, and they were saying, see, Jared, see, you wanted to extend DeAndre Hopkins, and now DeAndre Hopkins has a knee injury, and we were right, and you were wrong. Have you changed your mind? And I even heard Willie bring this up at the very end of the show. And I told Nick Frazier, I said, tell him, 2:15, we'll get to it. I do have a thought. We'll do it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 through the game.
when I heard this, Willie, the first thing I said was, and I texted to y'all, this is why you don't jump the gun and sign an agent individual. I don't care what position, because you never know what's going to happen at the beginning of camp. Anything can happen, injury, anything. I'm not saying that you don't sign him back, but what would have been the rush to sign him back at the beginning of the season? What if you sign him back and then he ends up missing half the season? Now you're on the hook with an agent receiver that is dealing with injuries. Now I expect D-Hop to be back at full go, ready to play, hopefully before the start of the season. But this is a reminder. You don't need to jump the gun to sign an individual because you're scared that he may leave after the year's up. If he leaves, he leaves. That's just, it happens.
That was D. Mace earlier today, and as soon as D. Mace said that, Willie goes, I know whose ears are burning. And then today, I heard at the very end of the show, them saying, see, this is why you do not give DeAndre Hopkins an extension. So here's the question. They didn't ask it, but I think they did without asking it. Say, hey, Jared, do you still want to give DeAndre Hopkins a contract extension at 32 years old now that he hurt his knee? Let me say this. Yes. Yes, I do. In fact, I actually don't think that this knee strain is a sign to not sign him. If anything, I think this actually makes it easier for him to want to sign a contract extension. The NFL is unlike the other sports from one very important standpoint. The contracts are as guaranteed as you want them to be. In baseball, if you sign DeAndre to an extension, in the case I'm talking about giving him $4 million extra this year, which would take him to $20 million a season, which I think he's worth $20 million bucks, plus $18 million next year, 4 of it's guaranteed. If you were to make that kind of offer to DeAndre, first of all, I think he'd take it in a heartbeat before the knee injury. But if you're only guaranteeing $4 million bucks next year, and let's say DeAndre turns into Yancey Thigpen, then you release him, pay him the $4 million bucks, and move on with your day. But if DeAndre goes out there and let's say he's fine off of the knee injury, and the Titans seem to think that he'll be fine off the knee injury, and he has another DeAndre-like year, you run the risk of somebody wanting DeAndre Hopkins. And it only takes one team, as we learned with the Nico and Aziz. So, I mean, look, it's not the end of the world to sign DeAndre to an extension, but this doesn't change my opinion of whether or not they should sign DeAndre. We talked about it yesterday. Outside of his PED suspension, and I'm sure he had an excuse because, you know, those guys, they always have excuses. Outside of his PED suspension, DeAndre Hopkins is a 15, 16, 17 games a year guy. I don't think that this is the first time he's ever been hurt, by the way. Like, I think DeAndre will be okay on the knee. If this were hockey or basketball or baseball and you were to give DeAndre an extension, well, now you're absolutely handcuffed. But it's not. It's football. These deals are not guaranteed. They're as guaranteed as you want it to be. Now, if DeAndre says, I want more guaranteed money, then I'm not going to sign him to an extension. But Rand Carthon made it known at his opening press conference that he values DeAndre Hopkins. And DeAndre Hopkins, in turn, made it known at his press conference 2 days later that he's never been happier than he is with the Titans. Well, if I tell you, hey, Adam Schefter thinks that the Titans are optimistic that DeAndre will be back within 4 to 6 weeks and that he'll be fine, and TD reported very quickly yesterday after Paul broke the news about the injury to DeAndre, TD reported very quickly that the Titans are optimistic it'll be more on the 4 range than it will be on the 6 range. At least that's what I believe TD reported. I don't want to get that wrong. But if that's the case, then he's going to play the games this year. And Levis is going to throw him the ball, and he's going to catch it, because it's DeAndre Hopkins, and he always does, but maybe a little knee injury and what happened to him last year when the Arizona Cardinals released him after the draft and he sat out there in purgatory, hoping to get a deal, calling teams. Dallas, not interested. Detroit, not interested. The Giants, not interested. He's looking for a job, and there were 2 teams that were interested. Maybe he's like, hey, I didn't enjoy that experience. I like it here in Nashville. And this knee injury, I'm going to get $4 million extra this year. I'm going to get $6 million extra this year. I'm going to get $4 million extra. Let's do it. To me, it gives you more leverage on a deal to extend DeAndre than it would just all of a sudden wipe out any thought of me wanting to extend DeAndre. Again, I'm not saying this is a good thing that this happened, because one thing that I do think happens too often in local media is, and we've had a lot of discussions this week about the role of the local media, but in an effort to quench the fandom that a lot of local media people have. I mean, I'm openly a fan of the team, but to quench the fandom, and I think, to be friends and buddy and everything else, which is encouraged, I think there's a lot of this is a good thing that this happened. And I'm not going to go that far as to say that. I mean, again, I think practice is important. If practice wasn't important, I don't think that there'd be a reason for us to not have practice if practice wasn't important. But there is an opportunity here for the Titans. Just like I think there's an opportunity for Will Levis to go out on the practice field tomorrow and say, okay, Ridley and Boyd, let me work the kinks out. He'll be fine checking it down to Spears. He doesn't need a lot of practice at that. He should be fine throwing the ball to the tight ends. But let me make sure that I'm on the right page with Ridley and Boyd. Let's see if Treylon Burks gets in there. Let's see what he can do now. Again, it's like the slate's clean. You couldn't catch a ball last year. Couldn't stay healthy the last 2 years. Let's see what that's great. And in this case, with DeAndre and his contract, I think if anything, it probably would intensify the need for DeAndre to want to get a deal done. And the last thing I'm going to do, if I'm trying to work out a deal with Hopkins, which it sounded like Rand was trying to do, the last thing I'm going to do is make DeAndre think that I'm using this against him as a leverage play, but I almost certainly would. I mean, you can't retract your offer or lower your offer because of it, but you definitely can say like, hey, are you sure? Because we value you a lot. We want you to be a part of this football team. We want you here. And, we're not going to worry about the knee injury. But, so no, Derrick, no, Willie, I am not changing my mind. Because when the season gets going, let's say Adam Schefter's right. Let's say that the Titans are right. Because, again, it's Schefter reporting and TD reporting that the Titans are optimistic about this. Let's say he doesn't miss a game. And he has another DeAndre-like season. 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. It only takes one team. And when we get to March of next year, there's not going to be anybody remembering this knee injury. And if the knee injury ends up being so bad, then you do what everybody else does in the NFL with these non-guaranteed contracts, and you release him and move on. And there are a lot worse bets in life. Now, I pay insurance. Pay insurance on my home, pay insurance on my car, pay a lot of insurance, right? Health insurance. Ian, you've got 2 kids. I'm sure you pay a lot in insurance.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, my wife actually has better insurance, so she has it, but yeah.
Okay. Well, guess what? We all hope that that's just money we're paying that we don't end up needing, right? That's the point of it. Well, if you end up paying $4 million as the premium on the insurance policy for DeAndre, it's not the end of the world at all. So no, guys, I'm not taking back my stance of let's get a deal done with DeAndre Hopkins before the season. I think this actually makes it more advantageous for the Titans to be able to do so. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. The guy everybody keeps talking about when it comes to this injury. The guy everybody's talking about is Treylon Burks. Because now it's like, okay, there's an opening, stick Burks in there, and let's see. Boy, I tell you, I think the excitement a lot of people have isn't actually coming from a predictive side of these people. I think it's coming from a want from a lot of people. We'll get to that coming up next on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Join 1025 The Game and Joe Dubin today from 4 to 6 p.m. at Duck River Raceway Park at 1100 Haskins Chapel Road in Lewisburg for their Deep Fried 75. Joe will have some swag to give away and a chance to win tickets to an upcoming concert. Get ready for the ultimate experience, adrenaline rush of heart-pounding action. Watch super late models battle it out and enjoy full concessions. Boy, I tell you, Floyd would love that. My God. That's Duck River Raceway Park, your high-speed family fun destination in only minutes from Horton State Park.
Titans wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins injuring his knee. What more can you tell us about that?
He was spotted at practice on Wednesday wearing a wrap around his leg. He left practice before it ended, was examined, and now it has come out that he's going to miss at least 4 to 6 weeks, which means essentially he's out for the remainder of the preseason, and the team will hope to have him back for the start of the regular season. And that means as they have a new head coach in Brian Callahan taking over, that they're going to have to rely on a former first-round draft pick in Treylon Burks and Calvin Ridley. Good thing they went out and signed him, but they're going to be missing DeAndre Hopkins for the remainder of the preseason. He can't acclimate to that new offense. Setback for him, and they hope that he's ready for the start of the regular season.
Okay, who's talking to Schefter? Because we have not in the past really ever, that I think, Ian, lately, I don't think we've had a lot of scoops from Adam Schefter of the Tennessee Titans.
That's a good question. Nothing really stands out right now.
You know, it's been very Diana-ish over the years. That has dwindled some since the change of the head coach, which I think many people have probably latched onto by the time that we got there to the end. And Ian Rappaport usually has a lot of Titans news, and I think that is the Titans, who are always trying to appease the NFL. I think that is the Titans going to their League-O network. Hey, that's our league partner. Let's give them the news. But that's Schefter. So I wonder who's talking to Schefter. We know it's not Rand. So is Brian Callahan a Schefter guy? We shall see. But regardless, Adam Schefter said, look, they're optimistic that DeAndre is going to be fine. And you know that report came from the Titans for 2 reasons. Number one, they said DeAndre left at the end of practice, but they thought it'd be okay. And then he only knows that if the Titans told him. I watched DeAndre walk off at the end of practice into the training room with about 8 minutes left on Wednesday. And I just thought DeAndre, that it was one of those, DeAndre, you're done for the day. And DeAndre went in the training room. Adam Schefter was, and so I didn't even think to process it to say, DeAndre left with a trainer today, and I saw it. So for Adam to know that kind of detail, he had to have gotten that from the Titans. And then the second part was he said, this is going to be a big opportunity for Treylon Burks, which we know is not Treylon Burks' name, or at least not how it's pronounced, which means, again, that Adam was told from somebody, via text message probably, this is an opportunity for Burks to step up. So I'm going to keep an eye out on how the Titans are disseminating their information through Adam Schefter. Something to keep an eye on. But let me say something about Treylon Burks, because he is going to get the opportunity to replace DeAndre Hopkins. I'm rooting for him. I really am. I make no bones about the fact that I'm a Titans fan. I love the Titans. I want the Titans to win the Super Bowl. My dad is 72 years old. He'll be 73 years old this month. I want one Super Bowl. I just want one. And everything after that would be gravy. But at the same time, the players that I generally like the best are the ones who usually are the best. And in Burks' case, that's not reality. But I'm rooting for Burks. Along the same lines that I root for Dylan Radins, and I root for Malik Willis, and I'm starting to root for Caleb Farley, because those guys have been through the absolute ringer. Treylon Burks was drafted to replace A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown woke up that morning and knew he was more likely than not getting traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. They had a contract worked out by noon. All that had to happen was a specific target the Titans wanted, and I don't know if it was just Burks or if it was one of the 6 first-round receivers. If it was Jamison Williams, if it was Jahan Dodson, if it was any of those guys, we're taking them. I don't know what was what, but Burks was clearly part of the negotiation. He didn't wake up that morning thinking, I'm going to get drafted. My dream's going to come to fruition. I'm going to get drafted by the Tennessee Titans, and I am going to replace A.J. Brown and have the pressure of replacing A.J. Brown. He did not think that. Gets put into the league, gets hurt as a rookie twice. And the second time was not his fault. I mean, he got decapitated against Philadelphia on a touchdown pass that he ended up catching. Last year, injures the knee at Minnesota, But then he starts the season, he's dropping the football, gets injured again, comes back, keeps dropping the football, I want to say he got immobilized against the Steelers last year. Am I remembering that right, Ian? I think they brought the stretcher out for him last year.
For Burks?
Yeah, against Pittsburgh.
Maybe.
I mean, he went up and couldn't bring down a fourth down pass and then laid on the ground. And I think
the concussion. On the sideline there.
Yeah, they brought the stretcher out, I believe, for him. And so then then they go sign Tyler Boyd. They sign Calvin Ridley. And he's trying his best. He's trying his best. That's why I am rooting for Dylan Radins. Last year when it looked like he was finally starting to find a niche at right tackle, not that I think he's a starting caliber player or starting caliber right tackle in the NFL, but I was hopeful that this was going to work out for him simply because, man, he's been through it. Malik has been through it. Malik got booed at home, and I was doing the booing. And when they say, well, we're booing the decision to put Malik in the game, that is 45% true. The other 55% is we're booing Malik. But Malik keeps getting better. Malik looks like he's in much better shape, from last year to this year, but he looks like he's in way better shape from his rookie year to now. I mean, he has really trimmed away all of that baby fat that he came into the NFL with. So I'm proud of Treylon Burks and what seems like the ability that he's had to put his head down and keep working. Now, let me make sure everybody understands. Rooting for and betting on are two totally different things. I am rooting for Treylon Burks. I'm not necessarily betting on Treylon Burks. But while I do root for these guys, because, look, I understand the money's good for all of them. Farley drafted in the first round. Farley's got a lot of money. Burks has a lot of money. Even Malik in the third round's got money. It's hard to go through what those guys have gone through. So hopefully this is a good opportunity for Burks. 615-737-1025. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Here on the program, one texter says this team needs all the reps they can get. There are too many new faces and a new system. So I'm going to push back a little bit on the new system. And here's why. Because as much as you guys think Mike Vrabel ran 1932 football and Brian Callahan is the wave of the future, Arthur Smith's system and language is the same as Matt LaFleur's. And Matt LaFleur's system and language, it's the same as Sean McVay's. And Zach Taylor's language and system, it's the same as Sean McVay as well. Well, where do you think Brian Callahan's language and system are coming? So the Titans as a team, for the most part, have all been through this. Hopkins has been through it. Burks has been through it under Todd Downing. These guys have been through it. Ridley, I think, has been through it under Arthur Smith in Atlanta in 2021. So they've all been through this system. Levis technically hasn't, but he played for Liam Cohen at Kentucky, who came from the Rams. So I don't think that the system is that big of a deal. I think most of the league runs this system, and you have run this system. You didn't last year, but for the most part, you've run this system. So I'm not too concerned about that. Now, the reps, I think the reps for a young quarterback, I think that's incredibly important. One texter says, I'm pulling for Burks and Farley as well. How fun and big would that be for those two to contribute this season in a meaningful way? Texter says, I'll be at the 49er game next week and cannot wait. That's Ryan in Nashville. I am undecided as to whether or not I'm going to go to the 49er game next week. I'm leaning towards no, because I don't really go to the preseason very often, but I'm not going to go to the Seattle game. I'll be in Canada during the Seattle game. So maybe I'll go to the 49er game. With Farley got drafted And there were all the concerns about his back and everything else, and he wasn't very good, and he got hurt right away. And then he came back the next season, and it was like, okay, Farley's competing for a job, and it was beyond obvious that he sucked. I mean, he got beat deep in practice every day. It didn't matter if it was your guy, Racey McMath. It didn't matter if it was the joint practices against the Bucks. It didn't matter if it was the game where Diami Brown of the Commanders went right by him and Carson Wentz threw a bomb for a touchdown. He was terrible. And then he got hurt. And then last year, I mean, just the tragedy that he went through. So when I see Caleb Farley stepping up to the plate in some of these drills in practice, or I see a pass breakup and Caleb Farley's involved in it, I get excited for him. I mean, I'm not counting on him like I'm counting on Snead and Awuzie and McCreary and Brownlee, and I'd put Trey Avery ahead of him, and I'd probably put Gabe Judy Lolly ahead of him. But I'm rooting for him. Rooting for Radence. Not expecting Radence to start, knowing that Radence isn't that good. But I'm rooting for him. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the show. Oh, so Joe Rexrow just texted me something stupid. And it has nothing to do with the stupid thing Joe Rexroad said that we were going to get into next. Ian, back me up on this. And Joe texted me something stupid. It has more to do with the system than it has to do with the stupid thing we're going to talk about, Joe said. But we were planning to talk about something stupid Joe said, regardless of what Joe texted me 1 minute ago.
I guess Joe's just full of stupid things.
Just full of stupid things today. We'll do it next. And your phones, 615-737-1025. You know what is not stupid? Using Window Nation if you need to replace your windows. Let Window Nation be your company, just like they're my company. I love Window Nation. And it is Window Nation's anniversary sale because right now, buy 2 windows and you get 2 windows for free. Plus pay nothing for 24 months and get an extra $250 credit. Go online. It's windownation.com. Again, I trust Window Nation. I know there's all these companies that redo windows. I get the little mailers in the mailbox and everything else. Window Nation is the company I trust. They came out to my home and they did not sell me on anything. They said, actually, you don't need to replace your windows. I said, you drove all this way out there? They said, yeah. And that's why when Trevor asked me about Window Nation, I was like, absolutely, they're the best. So use Window Nation. Again, pay nothing for 24 months. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, and get an extra $250 credit. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com.
Fire the trainer. I stand with
I'm not saying that.
not the
I'm just
trainer.
saying, like, if everybody else is going to get blamed at some point, isn't it that at some point, don't you have to think, like, you know,
If
this
you're
guy's
dumb,
gotta
yes.
keep our players from getting hurt, and our players keep getting hurt. We changed the turf. The coconut turf was supposed to save them, didn't? We're changing the coach.
I know it's
I mean,
crazy. Like some players are injury prone in a violent game where they smash into each other. It's wild.
Jared, we
How does
wish
that
the
happen?
best for Hank.
But the raw numbers of Titans, that is so stupid, Joe. That is like ignoring the raw numbers of Titans that have been hurt over the last 3 years compared to everybody else in the league.
Oh, I think
They're
there's
playing the same violent game, Joe.
sure. I think that there's definitely some player acquisition issues there in terms of overlooking injury history. I think you could blame some of that. Then some bad luck. People tear their knees up. Like there's no trainer who's going to prevent that.
So this morning I went on Robbie and Rexroad and I relayed what was told to me by, again, a high-end athletic trainer who works on pro athletes. Yesterday, I told him about the DeAndre injury, and he texted me back and said, yeah, DeAndre should be back to normal. He even took, I think TD posted the video with the wrap on DeAndre's knee, and he sent it back to me, and I read the text verbatim on the program in which he, an expert in the field who works on high-level athletes, including Titan players, said that DeAndre returning, quote, should be very realistic, but honestly, with their training staff, who knows? And Joe Rexroad this morning after I said it was like, only an idiot would think that the training staff has anything to do with all of the injuries that the Titans have had over the last 3. What? Really? Only an idiot would think that the training staff might be culpable? I have no idea. I said this yesterday on the air. I am not smart enough or qualified enough to be able to judge a trainer. As in, even if I had access to the training room, which I don't, and nobody who's not on the team has access to the training room, even if I had access to the training room and watched Todd Torricelli and his staff work on these guys every day and go through the programs, they have it. I'll tell you, he will. He's not qualified. Okay. Have the first year of all injuries. I thought it was AJ Brown gets hit in the chops. Like a lot of injuries. There's some guys they brought in, Julio Jones, were already hurt. Sure. I knew there was something to do with injury. The truth. So they blamed turf. Now, it's like they can modify the turf for every other place they play. Still have turf for last year. From the beginning, and they went to the coconut turf. So it's got coconut in it, and you have to water the turf. And they said, this will prevent the injuries. Then it did not. Now, the sentiment is, it was all Mike Vrabel's fault. That might be true. I mean, I will tell you the intensity of the practices, in my opinion, under Brian Callahan, are not as intense as the practices under Mike Vrabel. Maybe Vrabel pushed guys back from injury faster than they should have. I don't know. But to act like that there is absolutely, positively no way, no how that the training staff should be concerned or should be considered when it comes to the idea of all the injuries is absurd. If I was the training staff, and again, I'm sure they're good people. I'm sure they're good people. And Todd Torricelli's the head of it, so he's the one who gets called out by name. But I'm not pointing a finger. I'm just saying, I mean, it has to be part of the discussion. And Joe and Paul this morning were like, that's so stupid. I'm like, yeah, the trainers do matter. Like, the good trainers matter. In fact, the Titans, who are not known for paying the most at anything, don't have the highest payroll in the league. You're not going to pay your coach the most amount of money. You're not. When the old man was GM, he paid the trainers the most in the league. You want to know why? Because he wanted the trainers to be the best, and he wanted the trainers to understand that, hey, part of your job might be sleeping in the training room if you've got to do round-the-clock care because we need this guy back, but I'll pay you the most. So this more, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, I understand things when it's like, crazy Jared has this conspiracy theory. And there are sometimes that crazy Jared does have some conspiracy theories. But to sit there and act like it's absolutely just out of the realm of possibility that the training staff could be culpable for the injuries? Really? So stupid. I couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. Jeff texts into the text line. A lot of people have texted a similar sentiment. Jeff says, I'm not a conspiracy person, and I understand the point of getting reps, but what are the chances of an all-pro like DeAndre Hopkins honestly just being in protection mode and not taking chance of a preseason injury? That might also give more opportunities and incentive for Burks to step up before the season begins. Somebody else had a similar sentiment in the text line by saying, not saying that Hopkins isn't hurting, but this could be a situation where he's actually trying to save his body for a contract extension. I think DeAndre's actually hurt. I mean, again, we know the difference between a hold in and they have to bring the card out for him. For DeAndre, I watched him walk off with a trainer. Again, I didn't know, is he done for the day? Because Brian Callahan said that they're going to track with the analytics or whatever. I guess the same training staff's learned something new where they go up to the coach and they say, hey, so-and-so's hit the max acceleration. He's done for the day. Could have been that. I don't know. I don't think that DeAndre is milking something. I think this is real. Now, again, I don't think it's a big-time injury, and it sounds by all accounts like DeAndre should be back sooner rather than later. But like the texter says, with this training staff, who knows? Joe knows, but who knows? 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. I said I am rooting for Treylon Burks, and I am rooting for Burks. I am. But the Titans can't just root for somebody. They have to be prepared for reality. And reality might be something that a lot of people don't want to hear. We'll get to that coming up next here on the program. Let's talk Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. That's right. I love Fireball Whiskey. It goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. This is our last weekend before the football season. So if you have something big to celebrate, you want to do so with ice cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Ignite the night. Please do it responsibly. And I will be celebrating our great athletes that are performing in the games this summer. Get excited. That's Fireball Whiskey. Ignite the night. Please do it responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. We will have our first Jared Stillman and Company 53-man roster today in the 5 o'clock hour. So get excited about that as we have, again, we've got a week or so under our belts as far as training camp is concerned. And big news today, Ian, did you see who was welcomed back to the team off the PUP list?
Oh, yes, I did.
Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT.
PT is back in the lineup. So at least there is a little bit of that. So the big news, of course, is the DeAndre Hopkins knee injury. And I have said, don't panic. 4 to 6 weeks. Titans have been very optimistic in talking to Adam Schefter, very optimistic in talking to TD about how long Hopkins is actually going to be out. If it's 4 weeks, DeAndre does not miss a game. And he'll be ready to go week 1 against Chicago. And if DeAndre is ready to go week 1 against Chicago, DeAndre's in. And I think we can all agree on that. But for the next 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, there will be a hole at the starting wide receiver position. And the guy who will get the first crack at replacing DeAndre Hopkins almost assuredly will be Treylon Burks. And I've said I'm rooting for Treylon Burks. I am. But like I said earlier in the last hour, rooting for somebody and betting on somebody are 2 totally different things. I mean, I've seen elections, for instance, where, boy, I tell you, I was rooting for this guy to win, and then it came back, and he lost by 30 points. We've all been there. Again, rooting for and betting on are 2 totally different things. Treylon Burks has all the talent in the world. I've said that he has as much talent, if not more, natural God-given ability, size, speed, athleticism. He's got as much, if not more, than A.J. Brown. Now, the production is not the same, not even close. And I think personality-wise, A.J. might have more of that necessary a-hole in him at receiver than Burks does. But you always have to be prepared. That's why we have insurance. That's why people sign prenuptial agreements, because you always have to be prepared. And I said yesterday, I threw out the idea that, hey, if Burks can't get it done, at least I feel confident that the Titans can go put Nick Westbrook-Akine in that spot, and for 2 games, because again, if this is a 4 to 6 week injury and it's a 6-week injury, then Hopkins is out for the first 2 games. For 2 games, they can get by with NWI at wide receiver. I'm not the biggest NWI fan, but I absolutely value him on the roster. So you're going to give Burks the opportunity. Burks is going to start against San Francisco next week. Burks is going to be the number 1 receiver, or number 2, I guess, Ridley number 1. He's going to be the other outside guy in the joint practices against Seattle. He's going to play in the preseason. But if Burks can't do it, if he can't go from practice all-star against the second team to legitimate starting receiver, I know that they can get by with NWI playing that receiver spot. And boy, that did not sit well today with our buddy D Mace on the midday show, who was like, I do not want to hear about NWI.
First thing I thought was Treylon Burks. This is his opportunity to step up and grab hold of one of these starting receiver spots and force them to play you. That's what you have to do. The lane has opened for you to show that you're consistent, that you can stay on the field, and you get an opportunity to show your playmaking ability. You are the guy that is supposed to be next up in line. I heard Jared talking about it the other day, yesterday, and he said Nick Westbrook-Akine. Nah, this has nothing to do with Nick Westbrook-Akine. They know what Nick is. They know how to use Nick Westbrook-Akine. They're not, D-Hop gets injured. To me, elevate Nick Westbrook-Akine is not what you do. You elevate Treylon Burks because he's your first round pick, and you need to see, like, okay, is he going to be consistent this season? Is he going to stay on the field? I need to see what I really got in this guy. Nick Westbrook-Akine, I know who he is. I know what he is. He does make plays, but he's not a 1 or a 2. He's a 3 and a 4. He's a good 3 or 4, but this is an opportunity for you to really get a look at Treylon Burks. This is an opportunity for Treylon Burks to really build a rapport with Will Levis, because they're going to need it.
If you're telling me this is all about Burks, I would say at the beginning, yes. But once Burks gives you, if he gives you, and again, nobody gets in trouble for something they haven't done yet, but if Burks can't do it, the same reason you gave Calvin Ridley $23 million a year this offseason because you're nervous that Burks can't do it. If Burks can't do it, you got to turn the keys over to NWI for the Chicago game. You got to turn the keys over to him for the Jets game. You have to be prepared to pivot. And when I listen to D. Mace, I think he's not really prepared for that. I think it's like, no. We have to see if Burks is a number 1 guy. Okay, let's give him the preseason for a little bit. But at some point, you've got to be ready to beat Chicago. And again, I went to the rooting for versus betting on. Ian, if your house depended on it, the one that you, your wife, your 2 lovely kids, if your house depended on it and you needed to bank on who was going to be more productive, Nick Westbrook-Akine or Treylon Burks, who would you bet on?
This season or
Sure.
NWI?
I mean, it's not really that hard of a discussion, is it? Like,
I mean,
we're rooting for Burks, but at the same time, like, Burks hasn't done it yet.
yeah, that's the thing. Burks is definitely more talented. He's bigger, he's faster, he's stronger, but he's just not as reliable.
Here's what's crazy. Over the last 2 years, and I believe the Titans in each of the last 2 seasons have brought Nick, I think it was just 2023 that they brought Nick Westbrook-Akine back on a 1-year, essentially veteran minimum contract. I think it was like $1.3 million. The veteran minimum was like $1.2. NWI is every year the Titans let him go into free agency and then they sign him back. And I don't have any problem with that because I'm not giving Nick Westbrook-Akine $6 million. But over the last 2 seasons, between Westbrook-Akine and Burks, games played, NWI 31, Treylon Burks 22. Advantage, NWI. Receptions, NWI 53, Treylon Burks 49. Advantage,
Pretty close, though.
NWI. Yeah, well, NWI also wasn't handed a starting spot 2 years in a row. Reception yards, NWI 767, Burks 665. Advantage, NWI. Yards per reception. Ian, surely this is the one that Burks has the advantage in, right?
Well, you would think, given their skill sets.
Burks, 13.6. NWI, 14.5. Advantage, NWI. Touchdowns, NWI 6. Treylon Burks, 1. Advantage, NWI. So I am not arguing that Treylon Burks shouldn't get the first shot at replacing DeAndre Hopkins if DeAndre Hopkins misses the first 2 games of the season, or you did hear that, right?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Or more. But if Burks does not show you that this is going to be any different than it was the last 2 years, you need to put Nick Westbrook-Akine in that spot. Even going through last year, NWI, 26 catches, Burks 16. Reception yards, NWI, 370, Burks 221. Touchdowns, NWI 3, Burks 0. How about this number? Not that this matters at all. Last year, NWI was worth 57 fantasy points. Burks was worth 23.9.
Man, that's
The
pretty bad.
NFL is a production league. It's not a talent league. It's a production league. Some guys do get paid off talent, but for the most part, you get paid off production. NWI has outpaced Treylon Burks over the last 2 years. So it's not crazy to think that NWI could compete for that spot with Burks if Burks, once again, given a spot, does not take advantage of it. That's all I'm saying. And I think we all have to be reasonable with what Nick Westbrook-Akine is to this football team, which is reliable and dependable. Now, he's dropped some balls, and against Pittsburgh a couple years ago, he, for some reason, ran his route short of the marker, and he's not perfect, but he is available. He is dependable. The moment where my mind kind of turned a little bit on NWI was when I was watching Levis tape, and I went to the highlights just to see what he did the best during last year, and almost every highlight was Hopkins or NWI. Burks had a couple, Henry had a couple, Spears had a couple, Okonkwo had one, but it was, for the most part, Hopkins and Nick Westbrook-Akine. 615-737-1025. Cory Curtis, News 2, joins us next on the program. His reaction to the DeAndre injury, his thoughts so far through the 2 days in pads. He's been out there sporting his new beard. Cory Curtis, News 2, joins us next. Stillman and Company. Fireball Hot Take Friday. By the way, 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Tune into 94.9 The Fan today as the Sounds take on the Gwinnett Stripers. Pre-game at 5:50. First pitch 6:05. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan. Presented by Twin Peaks Family Leisure, 5 Points Roofing, Cottle Vet Clinic, and Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Stillman and Company on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Let's give something away. Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025. You want a pair of tickets to see 30 Seconds to Mars at Ascend Amphitheater tomorrow night. Get excited about that. DeAndre Hopkins out 4 to 6 weeks. That's the story. Adam Schefter says Titans are optimistic he'll be back at 4. TD saying the same. And that would mean that he will not miss a game, but will pretty much miss the entire preseason and training camp leading up to the Chicago game. We are joined now by Cory Curtis, News 2, who, Cory, I assume next Saturday you'll be on the sideline ahead of the San Francisco game?
Unless I dramatically screw things up, yes.
Okay, let's start there. Your thoughts on the DeAndre Hopkins injury, and what does it really mean for the season?
Well, I think the biggest thing is it takes him out of the practice field for 4 weeks working with Will Levis on timing. But at least he's one guy who Will has played with, at length. Maybe not in this offense, but there's more rapport there. So I think that's the biggest thing they're going to miss. But and we all know that since DeAndre's been here, I mean, he's practiced all the time.
Yeah.
I think, there's no controversy about this injury. I mean, he did something minor. He practiced through it the other day. You saw him with his knee wrapped. He was out there. So obviously he had tweaked something and continued to practice through camp with it. So, I think it's smart to shut him down and get him healthy. But it's more time and more opportunity for the other guys to show they can do something. You hate to say, if it's going to happen, now is the time, but it kind of is. And I don't mean to brush off and say it doesn't matter, because it does matter, but this is certainly not the end of the world.
What do you make of the opportunity for Treylon Burks? I'm convinced that he will one day enter the Training Camp Hall of Fame and might even be first ballot. But this does give him an opportunity. Brian Callahan has said starters are going to play in the preseason. What do you make of the opportunity for Burks?
Well, I think it's a big opportunity because, he was sitting behind those guys. Not that those guys were going to play a lot in the preseason, but this will give him a chance to run with the first team and show what he can do with the first team. And I think that there's value there for sure. Look, I thought last year he looked great in training camp, and, he was making plays when he got hurt up in Minnesota, if you remember that during practice.
Sure.
So, he's in
That's why he's
shape.
getting inducted into the Training Camp Hall of Fame.
Well, and so the big thing is he's got to continue to build on that confidence, and then he's got to stay healthy. And it's a good chance for him to play a lot and prove he can stay healthy and build on that confidence. And, we've seen him ramp up before, but the injuries always derail him. So he's just got to find a way to stay on the field and make some plays.
Cory Curtis with us from News 2. One guy who I feel like is getting left out because, again, the report was 4 to 6 weeks. The Titans are hoping it's 4. If it's 4, that means DeAndre's out there for Chicago. But if it's 6, that means that Chicago and the Jets will be DeAndre-less. The one guy who I feel like yesterday was getting totally left out by everybody is Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. And I just said to Ian, I go, bet your house between NWI or Burks, who do you think is going to be more productive? And he said NWI. I mean, again, NWI is not a starting receiver in the NFL. He's not being paid like a starting receiver in the NFL. And yet, I do think that if he has to replace DeAndre for 2 games, that he could do it. And I think the idea of just giving that position to Burks is probably not fair to what NWI has contributed on the field over the last 2 years.
It's that classic safe play. He's a safe play. He can go out there and he can play, but Burks gives you the boom or bust scenario. He's got the first round talent. He's got the high end speed. He's got the big hands. He's got the big body. He's got the ability to break the tackle and go further. Have we seen a lot of that to this point? No, we haven't gotten a chance to, but it's still intoxicating. It's still intoxicating to talk about the what if and talk about, there's a reason he was a top 20 draft pick. And so you're going to continue to point to that because, frankly, that's why you drafted him. All right. He's supposed to be better than Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Can Nick Westbrook-Ikhine do the job? Yes, he can. But there's a reason they drafted Treylon Burks. There's a reason they got DeAndre Hopkins. And there's a reason they got Calvin Ridley, because they're all better than NWI. And look, NWI he's a professional football player. He's a great athlete. And, that's not to disparage him whatsoever. The other guys are what you consider special. All right. They've done special things in their career. I think Tyler Boyd's got 2,000-yard seasons, 2 1,000-yard seasons to his belt. You know, when you watch Calvin Ridley run, I mean, really open it up, it is spectacular. And DeAndre's done what DeAndre's done. So, you know, there's something different about all of those guys than NWI at this point. Not to say, again, that NWI is bad, but he's more safe.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot thing. If Chicago was Sunday, so let's say DeAndre's out, who are you trusting in that spot more, Burks or NWI?
I'm going to go with Burks. I want more big playability.
Okay. Now, it should be noted that over the last 2 years, NWI has had more yards per reception, which is the big play stat, than Burks has. 6 touchdowns for NWI, 1 for Burks.
Well, and what has NWI also done that Burks hasn't done? He stayed healthy. He stayed healthy. And so, you know, that's been a big part of this. You know, I think Burks has 49 catches over the last 2 years. I'm willing to bet NWI's got more than that.
Yeah, he does. Cory Curtis with us, News 2. What has been your takeaway so far now that the pads have gone on at practice?
You know, it's not the same as it used to be. You know, I mean, I've been covering this team for over 20 years. And, you know, first couple days in pads used to be World War III out there. You know, first thing they would do is line up in that Oklahoma drill, and guys would be out there trying to kill each other. They don't do that anymore. So that's not. It's not what it used to be when you say, the pads
when
went on.
When you say that, Cory, and I don't know if you're referencing like the Jeff Fisher olden days with that.
Yeah.
But I actually think it has been noticeable, the difference in intensity between a Vrabel practice and a Callahan practice. And I am convinced that is the organizational philosophy to avoid the injury problems that they've had the last 3 years.
Well, I mean, look, Mike was going to be more of a physical, you know, wear people down type of coach. And again, I don't think those practices were anything like the Fisher practices. Okay. I mean, and that's just a change in the NFL. It's a change in how everybody practices, how, you know, there's rules for how often they can practice. There's rules for how often they can put the pads on. I mean, you used to remember they used to go twice a day. And I remember, like, you know, we have management days now, like Jamal Adams doesn't practice because it's a management day,
sure.
or Chidobe or whoever, they don't practice because it's management. A management day used to be Kevin Carter would practice in full pads in the morning and then Bob practice in the afternoon. I mean, even the management days have changed dramatically. I mean, like, they've got a plan. They've got clear, you know, cut analytical science ideas on how to manage it. We'll see if it works. You know, what happened the last few years didn't work because they couldn't keep guys on the field. So I think we just have to go in with an open mind, see what happens, see what works, see what doesn't. They're trying something different, and I think that's okay because what they did before didn't work.
Cory Curtis with his News 2. Your thoughts on the week that was for Jeffrey Simmons?
You know, everybody makes mistakes, and yeah, you know, look, to me, and I know fans really were divided 50-50 on this, and I don't care what Buck said, didn't say, or anybody says, doesn't say. There was no personal attack there. I know he was hot coming off the practice field, and he stayed hot, and he didn't follow that whole Herm Edwards adage of don't press send. He pressed send and walked back out of the locker room, and that was his first mistake. But it bothers me when you call a person a name and then run away. That's what kids do. That's what kids do. You're a man. You're a grown man. And Jeff knows he's a grown man, and Jeff knows he needs to handle himself better. And I commend Jeff for coming out the next day and not letting it drag on and immediately apologizing and saying he needs to be better. So I know some people will say he needed to answer questions about it, needed to go on and talk about it. He came out the next day, didn't hide from it, talked to Buck, apologized to it. I will give him a one-off and see where he goes from here because, good Lord, we've all had bad days.
We've all had bad days, absolutely. Where he was in your mind as a leader before this and where he is now, has that changed at all since he came out and apologized?
Well, look, you know, leaders step up and admit their mistakes, and so he did that. You know, he is unquestionably the guy, for this football team. I don't think that was a great start, but then, like I said, he followed it up by manning up and apologizing to the world. And again, so still his team, still the guy, but we'll just watch and see how he does better. I mean, his paycheck says he's the guy.
Mm-hmm.
His performance in the past, has said he's the guy. He's another guy who's got to stay healthy, because when he's healthy, he's really, really good.
Cory Curtis, News 2 on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. What's your hot take this week?
You know what? I'm not taking the cheese, all right, at all. And I'm not getting excited to say, oh, Malik. But I've seen enough from Malik to say something I didn't think I would say before the season. I want to see him play. I want to see what he does in the game in the preseason. I want to see how quickly the ball comes out, how accurately it comes out. Because it clearly looks like he's improved with Brian Callahan and this offensive staff. So I'm anxious to see the preseason, to see number 7 play, to see if he does have a future in this league. Because I think it was fair to question coming into the season and wonder, does he really have a future in this league? But what we've seen so far in practice says, you know what? The learning curve is moving, and he might. And so I'm excited to watch number 7 play.
Do you think he has a future in this league?
Sure. Sure. I want to see it. Okay. I want to see it. I mean, look, Blaine Gabbert had a future in the league. He hung around the league forever. I think he's still in the league. He's still terrible.
Sure. Big game, Blaine.
there have been a lot of bad quarterbacks who hung around for a long time. And Malik, a lot of it's been bad, but just because he's needed a lot of coaching compared to what he did in college. And he's needed a lot of time to learn to process and engage. And, he should be, I read some fans on Twitter talking about, how, what should Malik be thinking that, he hasn't gotten a chance and they drafted this guy. And now he gets, look, Malik should be lucky that the team is stuck with him. All right. I mean, really, he's got a team that's stuck with him for 3 years when every opportunity he's gotten to play hasn't been very good.
Well,
right?
I'm going to push back on that for one reason alone. I think Malik lucked out with the 2022 NFC Championship game where Brock Purdy and Josh Johnson got hurt and they allowed the third quarterback rule in effect because last year, had they drafted Will Levis and they're not being the third, it would have been Tannehill and Levis, and they would have gotten rid of Malik. And there's no reason to dump Malik right now because his contract is fully guaranteed, and it's not like you're going to get a better third quarterback who's not even going to be active anyways.
Well, and look, you don't want your third quarterback to ever have to play.
Sure.
I mean, you don't want your second quarterback
That's
to ever have
not
to
Vrabel.
play.
Vrabel wanted to rotate him in and out and everything else.
Yeah, that was great, wasn't it?
Unbelievable. Cory Curtis, News 2, as always, on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Cory, great stuff. Appreciate you. Have a great weekend. And we will see you on TV next Saturday, our last weekend without Titan football for the year.
Thank goodness. By the way, did we watch just Brett Rippon just deal for the Chicago Bears last night?
We is an overstatement of the numbers between the two people that we're talking about right here.
I did.
Of course you did, because the game was on News 2. So
Channel 2. Yeah, it was.
That's probably Cory Curtis can get the plug.
By the way, you're right. Those Texas uniforms were terrible.
Awful. I watched the video of the kickoff just to see what it looked like, and I saw those Texans uniforms. I'm like, first of all, I've always thought the Texans had pretty good uniforms. Like,
yeah, they got worse.
I'm a Texan uniform fan. I saw those uniforms. I'm like, those things are hideous last night. But again, I'm not going to cry any tears for the Texans. Cory, appreciate it. Great stuff, bud.
All right. Bye.
615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. I am shocked by fan reaction. Fireball Hot Take Friday, 1025, 1063 The Game.
Titans wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins injuring his knee. What more can you tell us about that?
He was spotted at practice on Wednesday wearing a wrap around his leg. He left practice before it ended, was examined, and now it has come out that he's going to miss at least 4 to 6 weeks, which means essentially he's out for the remainder of the preseason, and the team will hope to have him back for the start of the regular season. And that means as they have a new head coach in Brian Callahan taking over, that they're going to have to rely on a former first-round draft pick in Treylon Burks and Calvin Ridley. Good thing they went out and signed him, but they're going to be missing DeAndre Hopkins for the remainder of the preseason. He can't acclimate to that new offense. Setback for him, and they hope that he's ready for the start of the regular season.
Okay, that was Adam Schefter yesterday talking about the news that DeAndre Hopkins is out. So I have been monitoring the text line. I'm a little surprised by this, because I didn't hear Frobby and Joe talked about it, although this might be something that Joe might actually, and I might agree on. But Derrick today just totally shot down the idea of NWI starting at wide receiver in place of DeAndre Hopkins over Treylon Burks. And I agree. If I'm Brian Callahan, Treylon Burks gets the first crack at it. Tomorrow, and I assume the pads will be on at practice tomorrow. Tomorrow, when the pads go on, it, for me, would be Treylon Burks in DeAndre Hopkins' spot. But it's like the question I asked Cory Curtis. I said, if Chicago was on Sunday and you had to pick who's going to start in DeAndre's spot, would it be Burks or would it be NWI? And he hesitated a little bit before picking Burks because of the potential. But the production is not even close. NWI is better at everything over the last 2 years compared to Treylon Burks. And I'm surprised because I've looked through your phone, 615-737-1025, and the text line, very supportive of Nick Westbrook-Akine. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jeff says, I'm not saying you were one of them, but I'm glad there are some of us that were vocal supporters of NWI 2 or 3 years ago when many were saying he was garbage and cut him. He may not be a number one receiver, but he has been a darn valuable asset. So I don't completely, as I think about it off the top of my head, I don't know how I felt about NWI. I mean, I remember when NWI went in the game against the Ravens to play wide receiver in the playoffs in 2020, and because Corey Davis was out, and I remember thinking, oh my God, why is he in the game? And then Joe wrote a story at The Athletic, and Joe got crushed for this. But Joe wrote a story in The Athletic, and it was sourced information, but the story was the Titans might be willing to let Corey Davis go because they feel like they can replace him, and they feel like Nick Westbrook-Akine may be a guy who would be in the mix to replace him. And everybody thought, oh my God, what are you talking about? In fact, hold on, let me pull up NWI's stats. I would bet that NWI in 2020 had like 4 catches. And so, again, we're talking about replacing Corey Davis.
Well, NWI has had some bad drops. He's not perfect.
I think NWI had a drop against the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football in the game that Malik played, off the top of my head. I think I remember he had one, and Chris Connolly, who was playing, had one. But you're right. But, I mean, he hasn't had more drops than Burks. Burks
Maybe
had
not
3 in one game last year.
Yeah.
NWI had 3 receptions. I said 4. He had 3 receptions in 2020. So Joe writes this article about how the Titans are like, hey, we might be able to move on from Corey Davis because we've got, we can replace him. And a guy that could do that would be NWI, which was crazy talk, but that was what Davis had in 2020, 65 receptions. And so everybody went crazy, including me, but NWI was a valuable asset on that 2021 team that ended up getting the number 1 seed. And I don't think I have questioned at all over the last 2 years when the Titans have let NWI depart as a free agent, only to let him go around the league, see there was not much there, and then sign him back to a 1-year veteran minimum-ish contract. And as I've said, until proven otherwise, I believe we will see NWI and Trey Avery on the football field this year because those guys always seem to find a way to end up on the football field. Can't tell you what it is, but I just know they always seem to find a way to end up on the football field. Dylan says, let's say Burks has a breakout year, or let's say he does insanely well in the first 2 games. Would they then sit Boyd so that the Titans could have Ridley, Hopkins, and Burks? Well, I don't think that. I think the Titans believe that that Burks could play the slot if he had to, but I don't think that Burks is a slot receiver. I know he played the slot in Arkansas, but I don't think that they want Burks to be a traditional NFL slot receiver. In fact, I think if Boyd went down, it would be Jaquan Jackson or, if Kyle Phillips makes the team, or even NWI, that they would stick in that slot before maybe they would put Burks in there. I think what you would see, though, is more designs for Burks, even with those guys on the field, if Burks were to do well the first 2 weeks. This is the way I view it with Burks. I've been impressed by him so far in practice, but last year I was impressed by him in practice, and he didn't do anything in the season. Let's see where it goes. And if Burks becomes a stud, then ride the stud and figure it out as you go. But I wouldn't just say, oh, well, now let's stick Tyler Boyd on the bench. I said, well, no, let's see. And I still think Tyler Boyd's going to end up leading this team in receptions this season. One texter says, I remember a deep ball that NWI dropped against Pittsburgh. Other than that, I can't think of one. Was it NWI that dropped it? There was a Pittsburgh game in 2021 that the Titans lost. Ultimately, didn't matter because they ended up with the 1 seed. But this was kind of the game where you could see the cracks in Tannehill, where the Titans are just beating that ass in Pittsburgh in the first half, and then it all fell apart. I think there was like a botched snap. There was a fumble by Racey McMath, why he was in the game is beyond me. There was Tannehill threw it short of the sticks on 4th down to NWI. It was just a disaster. I do believe there was a deep ball and somebody dropped it. It might have been NWI. But man, that game was a complete and total nightmare for Ryan Tannehill. That was the game where I realized, this Ryan Tannehill, Todd Downing thing, it's not working out. This Ryan Tannehill, they got problems. And I also remember in that same game, Deontay Foreman was just running the crap out of the ball. And as they did with Foreman, when he would run the crap out of the ball, they took the ball out of his hands. By the way, did you see yesterday, Ian? Very scary injury for Deontay Foreman.
Yeah, I saw a headline about that. I didn't actually see, but I think I heard he was okay.
Yeah, so he's got movement in all of his extremities, but I saw he was stretchered off the field yesterday at Browns practice, and I'm thinking, wow, Mike Vrabel and Deontay Foreman back together again.
Yeah, that's probably not good. They got to worry about Nick Chubb coming back, so they could probably use him.
One text says, during the offseason, I heard a lot of people asking to get rid of Burks or trade Burks, and now people are on his side supporting him. It just shows you how important depth is in football. I never discounted depth. When it came to Burks, I look at it like this. If you could have gotten a 4th-round pick or better, I think they would have made the trade. Because then it comes into, 2 more years of contractual control for Burks, or 4 years on that 4th-round pick, and you save $8 million in cash, less of whatever that 4th-round pick makes. But I'm not sure if they went looking for that or not. I'm not sure if that existed or not. But absolutely, depth is a real, again, what have I kept telling you guys? Even before the injury to Awuzie in camp and the injury now to Hopkins in camp, what did I say? I said, you watch. Trey Avery and NWI will find themselves on the field one way or another. And I truly believed that. Truly thought that there was something there on that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program if you want to weigh in. So the Titans are putting the pads back on tomorrow. And there is something that I am keeping an eye on that is important to me. Maybe it's not a big deal. I don't know. We'll get to it next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number here on the program. It's Stillman and Company on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Our Nashville's best deal of the week is admission to the Frist Art Museum. Enjoy ever-changing exhibitions from world-renowned collections. Get creative in Martin Art Quest, the Frist hands-on art-making space, and find unique handcrafted items in their gift shop. Current exhibitions include fashion, photography, graphic arts, ceramics, VR, and more. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals now to get 2 tickets to the Frist Art Museum for the price of 1 while supplies last.
Pushing and shoving, getting into a scrape in practice happens amongst linemen all the time. Don't throw a punch. When there's an official there on site and they tell the coaching staff 98 would have been ejected in a game. By rule, he's ejected. And then you put him in 2 plays later. The coaching staff has failed. A new coaching staff that all I've heard about with Brian Callahan is how damn nice and open he is with his media access and everything. That's great. Seems like a really fun, good dude. Kick his ass out of practice. Send a message. Do it. That's what happens when you get into a fight, especially when you get into a second one right after that. Instead, he's allowed to go back in. Another fight happens.
That was Chad Withrow on Outkick. Chad will join us, of course, later on the Fireball Hot Take Friday. But I thought it was really well said about the whole Jeffrey Simmons thing, where it's like, hey, wait a minute. Everybody's telling me that this coach, Brian Callahan, oh, he's the best. And it's like, well, you gonna do something about it, or are you just gonna let him throw punches in practice? Now, with Mike Vrabel, it was a non-negotiable. It was binary. You throw a punch in practice, you're out. As I said on Tuesday and throughout the rest of the week, I was disappointed that Brian Callahan did not throw Jeffrey Simmons out of practice. And then obviously, the other stuff that happened off the field with Buck, that was a whole different discussion with Simmons. But I was disappointed. My parenting in that situation my parenting would be to throw the guy out of practice. Brian Callahan's parenting might be different. Some parents spank their kids. Some parents don't. I don't know what's right. But again, I disagreed with it. The next day in the pads, TD, Cory Curtis, Paul Kaharski all saw Kenneth Murray take a swing at Josh Wiley. Again, it is binary in an NFL game. If you throw a punch, you're out. Now, I understand in training camp, fights happen. I've seen them happen every year. I remember one day training camp in 2021 in Tampa Bay. I was standing in the back of the end zone with Gentry Estes, and all of a sudden, Ian, you remember Chris Jackson, the corner?
Yeah, I do. 7th rounder.
Yeah, he was kind of like Trey Avery before there was Trey Avery.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Jackson and Antonio Brown just went after each other. And you know who instigated that, by the way. Of course, it was Antonio Brown.
AB.
And I'm like, and then we didn't see Antonio Brown anymore for a little bit. And I'm like, oh, Antonio Brown got thrown out of practice. Good. And then about 10 minutes later, Antonio Brown was back out on the practice field. And I thought to myself, this Bruce Arians has no discipline. And then what became the main issue with Antonio Brown? Discipline. Respect with Bruce Arians. And then why did that team not win the Super Bowl that year? Because they didn't have the discipline against the Rams to line up correctly on defense at the end of the game. So open practice returns tomorrow. And I assume that they'll have the pads on since they had yesterday off, and today was supposedly a conditioning period and then a jog through, like kind of a walk through where they're not wearing. I don't think they wore pads today, which means pads are most likely tomorrow. Tomorrow is most likely to be a physical practice. So let me just get this out there right now. No punches. The Titans need a day in pads on an open practice where they do not throw a punch. First day in pads, Simmons threw a punch. He would have been ejected. Second day in pads, Kenneth Murray took a swing. He would have been ejected. If we have a third padded practice in a row and somebody takes a swing, and remember that taking a swing in practice or in a game gets you ejected, period. If we have a third day in a row in which somebody throws a swing, then we got a problem. Again, it happens. I think throwing punches in practice is stupid because if you throw a punch and you connect with a helmet, chances are you're going to break your hand. That's the point of the helmet. And if Jeffrey Simmons had broken his hand or Kenneth Murray had broken his hand, we'd be in a lot bigger problem. We'd have a lot bigger problem right now than what they have going on. So I have to be honest. I like Brian Callahan. My challenge to him is, can we make it a day in pads where it's intense and there will be some pushing and shoving and there will be competitive football, but can we make it a day without throwing a punch that costs you 15 yards in a game and costs you the player? Can we make it through a whole practice without somebody throwing a punch? If we can't, then there's a discipline question around here. I will be keeping my eye on that tomorrow. And I understand there are going to be fights in practice. There are going to be scrums. There's going to be some pushing and shoving. There's pushing and shoving in games. But you can't hurt the team. And what's the old saying when it comes to you're either coaching it or you're allowing it to happen? If they throw a punch third day in a row, you're allowing it to happen. Drew is in Austin, and he's up next here on the program. Thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. Drew, go ahead.
Yeah, dependability, I'm taking NWI. Do I want to live in a world where NWI is a guy that we're depending on at the one or the two? I don't.
Sure.
We need to see something more from Chig this year. Chig may have to fill that void if DeAndre is out for a little bit. I need to see him bump that 500-yard average. Let's get to 800. Let's get some more TDs. I need him to look to be a guy. We've seen some spurts. We haven't seen that full growth yet. Maybe Callahan can get him to that full growth.
So I think the big thing with Chig, thank you for your call, Drew. I think the big thing with Chig is Chig needs to be worried about his spot because it is a legitimate battle, in my opinion, for the tight end 1 spot between him and Josh Wiley. And if I had to handicap it for you, I would make Wiley the favorite. Now, I'm concerned about Wiley's injury history. And Chig, while he has not been the best over the last 2 years, has pretty much played in every game. So at least Chig's more reliable, but Wiley is the bigger target. And I personally think right now, Wiley is ahead. I do think the tight end is going to be very important because I think a tight end is always important for a young quarterback. That is why I was so staunch in my belief that this team should have drafted Brock Bowers with the 7th overall pick. But I think the battle for Chig is not to step up and get 800 yards as a tight end, which is a lot for a tight end. I think the battle for Chig is fend off Josh Wiley and keep his starting spot. One texter says, I made a full-on explosion from Burks and a 1,000-yard season. My hot take prediction just a couple of days after the Callahan hire, and I stand by it, says the texter. The next texter says, Treylon Burks will never be a starter. Get rid of him. It's like even now, when Burks has played well in practice, and there's a little bit of an opening given the DeAndre injury, even then, do you believe, do you not believe when it comes to Treylon Burks still exists among this fan base? And I'm in the middle. I mean, Burks hasn't given me a lot of reason to believe, but camp so far has looked pretty good. And then when it comes to NWI, he hasn't stood out really at all in training camp, but NWI seems to always make the plays. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. The Athletic and ESPN, with it being holiday or Hall of Fame weekend, have hinted at who the next Titans Hall of Famer can be. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 to the game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, the game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Ian, did you tune in at all last night for the Hall of Fame game?
I did not know.
I didn't either. I watched the video on Twitter of the new kickoff just to see what it looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it looked fakakta, but it didn't. The end result was the guy got to the 25-yard line.
I saw
mean,
both of them got to the 26 or something like that.
I mean, like, well, okay, whatever.
All that hype for 2 returns to the 26.
But the one thing the Hall of Fame game does every year, other than being the official reminder that, thank God, football season is so freaking close. But what the Hall of Fame game kind of also serves a purpose for is to remind us who's making the Hall of Fame. Like when Jacksonville played in it last year, I was like, oh yeah, Tony Baselli's getting into the Hall of Fame. When Houston played in it this year, I was like, oh yeah, Titans great Andre Johnson, who did have a game-winning touchdown pass catch against the Detroit Lions in 2016. Andre Johnson's getting in the Hall of Fame. Who from the Bears is getting in the Hall of Fame? Is that Jared Allen?
Thought it was Hester.
Oh, maybe it was Hester, who Floyd Reese had on the phone ready to draft in the second round of the 2006 draft, only to have Jeff Fisher, Norm Chowkovitz, and draft Lindell White instead.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a reminder that over the weekend, they will induct the latest class of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Now, I don't know how we feel about Hall of Fames around here. You know, I used to, as a kid, I used to take the Baseball Hall of Fame very seriously. That, it was a true honor to be elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Now we've got Harold Baines and Scott Rowland and Fred McGriff and like guys that I personally, I'm like, is Scott Rowland really a Hall of Famer? Randy Johnson, yes. But Scott Rowland? And I feel the same way about the other sports. I was stunned that I saw Shea Weber got into the Hockey Hall of Fame. And in the Football Hall of Fame, there's a bunch of guys that get in that I'm like, do we really need Edgerrin James in the Pro Football Hall of Fame? But one thing that I guess I do care about is whether or not Derrick Henry gets into the Hall of Fame. And both The Athletic and ESPN had stories that came out this week while discussing the Pro Football Hall of Fame that went over future Hall of Famers. In the case of The Athletic, they went over each team's next Hall of Famer. In the case of ESPN, they tried to predict the next 10 Hall of Fame classes. So The Athletic writes that the next Titan to make it to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and this would really be the first Titan to make it to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, because while Bruce Matthews got into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, he was really an Oiler. He wasn't a Titan. He was an Oiler. Just like Earl Campbell's an Oiler. So this would be the first one. Kevin Mawai's in the Hall of Fame. Andre Johnson's in the Hall of Fame. But those guys aren't Titans. Derrick Henry would be a Titan. The Athletic writes, quote, a 2-time NFL rushing leader and 1-time NFL Offensive Player of the Year, Henry is guarded by many as the best running back of his time. He's still building his resume, and expectations are high for the 30-year-old as he begins a new chapter in his career after signing with the Ravens as a free agent. So they're saying, I think Derrick Henry gets in the Hall of Fame, but he's still building the resume. Still needs to do more with the Ravens. Bill Barnwell, meanwhile, at ESPN, was trying to predict the next 10 Hall of Fame classes, actually has both Julio Jones, who would not count as a Titan. He'd be like Andre Johnson. But Julio Jones making the Hall of Fame ahead of Derrick Henry. And he also has DeAndre Hopkins making the Hall of Fame a year before Derrick Henry. But he writes, quote, in 2034, Derrick Henry will make the Hall of Fame in his 4th year of eligibility. Henry and McCaffrey basically traded widespread recognition as the best player at their position for most of the span between 2018 and 2023. I would call this the post-Adrian Peterson era. That for the first half of the 2010s, Adrian Peterson was the best running back in the NFL. And I think the post-Adrian Peterson era, it's been Derrick Henry and McCaffrey. Now, I think they do two totally different things. And McCaffrey right now will get the nod because McCaffrey is on a good team. But let's not forget, McCaffrey wasted a lot of time in Carolina. He writes, Henry and McCaffrey basically traded widespread recognition as the best player in their position for most of the span between 2018 and 2023, with one season from Jonathan Taylor as the exception. And the only reason Jonathan Taylor had that 1 year as the exception is because Derrick Henry broke his foot. He continues. They have both felt like transcendent players at their best and made unheralded quarterbacks look like stars. I don't see much of a problem of putting either player in, even if they don't have lengthy careers, given how the league treats running backs these days. Let me say this. I'm not rooting for Derrick Henry with the Ravens because I don't like the Ravens. So I'm not going to root for the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. But for some reason, I do feel invested in Derrick Henry one day making the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I can't totally explain to you what it is. Sure, there's some pride to be had there. But every year when the Predators start some online campaign about why Roman Josi should be the Norris Trophy winner, I don't ever get too involved in that. And I like Roman fine. Shea Weber makes the Hockey Hall of Fame. Whoop-de-doo. But there's something about Derrick Henry. I love Eddie George, and I love Steve McNair, but I don't think they're Hall of Famers. Henry, I feel, is different. I remember the day Derrick Henry broke his foot. A funny story about that. When they played Indianapolis, that was the game. It was late October, but the Titans had such a big lead on the division that it was like if they beat Indianapolis, they're going to run away with it. And they did. And they beat them in overtime, and Kevin Byard had a couple interceptions, and the Titans ended up winning the game. And I was in Atlanta with my dad at the World Series. The Braves had just won games 3 and 4. They were up 3-1 on Houston. It felt like they were going to win the World Series. And we're going to game 5 that night. So me, my dad, and my best friend's dad, who's also a huge Braves fan and was at the World Series, we went to a Dave & Buster's in Marietta, and there was nobody else there. And so they put the Titans and the Colts on the big screen, and we watched that game. And I remember walking into the hotel that after the Titans game was over, before we went to the World Series game 5, thinking to myself, the Atlanta Braves are up 3-1 in the World Series with game 5 tonight. The Titans are about to run away with the AFC South. What have I done to the sports gods to deserve this? Thank you, sports gods. And then the Braves lost game 5. And as we were driving back the next morning from Atlanta to Nashville, as I was listening to Robbie and Rexroad with Cory Curtis on the show, I heard Robbie go, "We've got breaking news. Adam Schefter reports Derrick Henry's broken his foot." And oh no! Oh no, no, no. And it wasn't that I thought the season was over, because I knew that they had won the division the day before. But what I was really heartbroken about was the fact that, like, through half the season, Derrick Henry had like 900 yards. They probably hadn't even played half the season up to that point. And I felt inevitable, that it was inevitable. The way that Todd Downing, to his credit, for all the bad things he did, he was running the crap out of Derrick that year. I thought he was going to get 2,000 again. And I thought to myself, 2 2,000-yard seasons. I don't think anybody's ever done that. 2 2,000-yard seasons, 3 straight rushing titles. You're in the Hall of Fame. Like that, it's as simple as that. 3 straight rushing titles. 2, because then even if you don't have a long career, and I think Derrick will play about another 4 years or so, but even if you don't have a long career, you've now approached Terrell Davis, Gale Sayers territory. And when Derrick Henry broke his foot, I knew there goes everything that comes with another 2,000-yard season. Right? Would he have been the league MVP that year? I don't know. I probably doubt it. I can't even. Who was the league MVP in 2021?
I'll have to look it up.
Was it Mahomes? It might have been Mahomes by default. I can't even, because the next year
I think it was Rodgers.
Oh, yeah. That's when Rodgers was, mad at the Packers.
It was his second straight one.
Yeah, it would have been Rodgers no matter what. So, okay, so at least it wasn't that. But Derrick probably wins AP Offensive Player of the Year 2 years in a row because Jonathan Taylor won it that year, and Derrick was going to have 2,000 yards, and Taylor didn't have 2,000 yards. So he would have had 3 rushing titles. He would have been first-team All-Pro. He would have had another AP Offensive Player of the Year. Like, he would have made the Hall of Fame. And for some reason, I personally feel invested in Derrick Henry making the Hall of Fame. And I can't tell you what it is. And I'm sure Kaharski, and this is crazy, but guess who is the person who is responsible for getting Derrick Henry into the Hall of Fame? You want to take a guess, Ian?
It's Kuharski.
Kaharski. The person who has to get up there and make the case for Derrick Henry to get in the Hall of Fame is going to be Paul Kaharski. And yet Kaharski's going to crap all over what I'm about to say. For some reason, I want Derrick Henry in the Hall of Fame. And when I read these articles about 10 years from now, in the 4th year of eligibility, maybe Derrick Henry makes the Hall of Fame, I'm like, does that mean you got to root for the Ravens now? I mean, But for some reason, when I look at Hall of Fame weekend, I do think Vondre Johnson's in, if Devin Hester's in, if Jared Allen's in, Derrick Henry belongs in the Hall of Fame. Just like I think Corey Dillon belongs in the Hall of Fame. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. So where does Derrick Henry rank? The Pro Football Reference website has a Hall of Fame monitor. And for the most part, it's pretty accurate. But every now and then there's some kind of Furcata. Matt Ryan should be a slam dunk first ballot Hall of Famer. And I'm like, no. Where do they have Derrick? I think you'll be shocked. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game. Let's talk Fireball Whiskey. That's right. Nothing goes down as smooth and tastes as great as ice-cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. That's right. I love Fireball Whiskey. Fireball Whiskey is the best. So if you are out celebrating this weekend, if you are celebrating that this is the last weekend without football for us, whether you're celebrating the men and women representing the country in the Olympics, whatever it may be, Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey is your choice. Goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. There is no better way to ignite the night than to do so with ice-cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. That's Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey, 21 years or older to enjoy, and please drink responsibly. Is Derrick Henry a Hall of Famer, or does he have to do more?
No, he's a Hall of Famer. If you ask me right this second, is he a Hall of Fame running back? He's a Hall of Fame running back. I love Henry. I know he didn't, he did not perform and did not play in a Super Bowl. He's a great all-time back. He's done it long enough. Yes, I think Marshawn Lynch is a Hall of Famer too. Now, he may not make it, but I do think that Henry is a Hall of Fame back. He could, in my eyes, no, I don't vote, obviously, but in my eyes, if he never played another down, I'd put him in the Hall of Fame.
That was Mad Dog Russo on our program at the Super Bowl saying, I love Henry. I think Derrick Henry's a Hall of Famer. Again, Bill Barnwell at ESPN says 2034, and that Derrick Henry will have to wait 4 years before being inducted, or 9 years because you're 5 out, plus fourth year of eligibility for Derrick Henry, and that Derrick Henry will eventually get into the Hall of Fame. So I wondered, okay, let's take our feelings out of it. Mad Dog, and I think Mad Dog is Ian in all seriousness. Now, he doesn't vote on the Hall of Fame, but I think that when it comes to the Hall of Fame, he's the right guy to be talking about who belongs in or who belongs out or whatever it may be.
I mean, as far as like perspective.
Yeah, because he knows all the old players.
Yeah, and he doesn't really have a dog in the hunt per se.
I mean, Paul told me that there's some coach from the Detroit Lions in like the 50s before the merger who won a bunch of NFL championships. And this guy has an unbelievable winning percentage and everything else. And Paul has tried and tried and tried to get this guy in the Hall of Fame. And it never took. And that now the people voting, because all the Peter Kings and those people are retiring. And so there's newer, younger people coming in. They're never going to sit there and say, oh yeah, that coach from the 50s who coached the Lions and won those NFL championship games, that kind of thing. They won't put those guys in the Hall of Fame. And I think that there is something to that. And so I do think, I don't think I would be a good Hall of Fame voter today. I do think 15 years down the road, I think I'd be a pretty good voter for the Hall of Fame. But I do wonder, all right, take the subjectivity out of it. Where does Derrick Henry rank amongst Hall of Fame running backs? So I went to the Pro Football Reference Hall of Fame monitor, which, as they write at Pro Football Reference, the full mythology is listed below. But to summarize, the base formula uses weighted approximate value, which is 100% of the player's peak year and 95% of their second best year and 90% of their third best year and so on as a starting point. Bonuses are added for Pro Football Hall of Fame all-decade selections, MVP awards, Defensive Player of the Year awards, first-team AP All-Pro selections, Super Bowls, Pro Bowls, and more in descending weights. In addition, bonuses are added if a player has earned first-team All-Pro in over 33% of their seasons, and this reflects the reputation boost afforded to players who led the league in short careers like Gale Sayers, Terrell Davis, and Tony Baselli. For players not yet inducted, small bonuses are also added for semifinalists and finalist appearances on previous Hall of Fame ballots, since that indicates they've already been seriously considered. Derrick Henry is 71st amongst running backs. That's bad. He is one spot behind Eric Metcalf, who was a good but not great running back. In fact, there are 4 Titans all time that are ahead of Derrick Henry, Titans/Oilers. Earl Campbell, who is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Eddie George, who is not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame and who is never going to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Lorenzo Neal, the fullback. And Chris Johnson, who is not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I love CJ, but he's not going to be in the Hall of Fame. Now, I think, again, this is kind of just waiting. Derrick Henry's only been an AP All-Pro once, and that was the 2,000-yard season. I don't know who they gave it to in 2019, but it wasn't Henry. He led the league in rushing. And then the next year, he broke his foot. So, I think that it's bullcrap to have Derrick Henry 71st. Now, another stat they have is the average value or annual value or whatever, AV. Henry's weighted value is 64, which would put him ahead of 3 Hall of Fame running backs, Lenny Moore, Gale Sayers, and Paul Hornung. Now, Paul Hornung was back in the day, as were the other two, but Gale Sayers, again, he's The best 4 years maybe in the history of the NFL. I think Derrick is right on the cusp. Now, if we're putting Devin Hester in, then we should put Derrick Henry in. And maybe we will. But I do think that this bears monitoring. If you're like me, and for some reason, and I can't tell you what the reason is, for some reason I care about Derrick Henry one day making the Hall of Fame. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, 615-737-1025. One texter says, say what you want about Jared, but he's spot on about the Hall of Fame. Everyone you named are not Hall of Famers. It's becoming less meaningful every year. And again, I was talking about, Devin Hester and Edgerrin James and those kind of guys that are in the Hall of Fame. Edgerrin James is the one for me that I'm like, really? Benny in West Tennessee's mad, all caps Ian, says Patrick Willis, Brewston is your listening area. Where is Brewston?
I believe it's, I don't know. I don't know exactly.
Andrew says, I hate the Ravens. Every player in that uniform. And I couldn't care less if Derrick Henry ever makes the Hall of Fame. Have fun in Baltimore. I mean, I hate the Ravens too. But I don't hate Steve McNair. I hate the Ravens too. And I root against the Ravens. And I'll root against Derrick Henry, even though I am invested in the idea of Derrick Henry becoming one day a Hall of Famer. But I'm not rooting for the Ravens. But that doesn't mean that I hate players that played for the Titans that also played for the Ravens. Although there is one former Titan who played for the Ravens who I absolutely can't stand. He hosts the show before mine. I'm kidding.
Looks like Brewston is west of town.
How far?
Almost to Jackson.
Is that really our listening area?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's a little bit, keep going down 40, a little bit past Dixon. You might be able to get us out there.
Isn't Jackson 3/4 of the way to Memphis?
Yeah. 2/3.
And you're telling me that our signal goes all the way out to 2/3 to Memphis?
Maybe.
Hey, maybe. Who knows? One text says, I love Derrick Henry, but just wondering how many more running backs would benefit from the poor quarterback and wide receiver situation the Titans had. Add up 100-plus carries per season, and a lot of other running backs with their stats would go up. So here's what I would say to that. I would argue that Derrick Henry was the best player on the Titans of the last era. So while you say, well, hey, if they had Tom Brady, it wouldn't have been the same. Maybe. But the Titans had the second best offense in the league with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. Now, we know what Ryan Tannehill is. A.J. Brown at wide receiver. Now, we know A.J. is very, very good. Corey Davis at wide receiver. We know he was average. Arthur Smith is the offensive coordinator. Right now, Arthur's reputation outside of Nashville is nowhere near the reputation that he has inside of Nashville. And nowhere near, not even close. To me, Derrick was the straw that stirred the drink on that team. And so who were Eric Dickerson's quarterbacks? I have no idea. Was that Vince Ferragamo? Was that Eric Dickerson's quarterback? I have no idea. Who were Adrian Peterson had Christian Ponder as his quarterback. So I don't look at it like that. I think Derrick Henry, to me, in the post Adrian Peterson era, Derrick Henry's best running back of the game. Derrick Henry 1, McCaffrey 2. I'm tempted to say Zeke number 3, but I feel like that wouldn't be right. Zeke, Kamara, Barkley, those guys are all kind of, in the mix somewhere, somehow.
Just got a call from someone that said they're almost to the Tennessee River west of town and coming in loud and clear.
Well, and was that Dustin and Brewston?
He didn't say, actually.
Okay, so Dustin and Brewston just texted in and said, I'm 20 miles east of Jackson, and I hear you loud and clear.
There we go. Boom.
The text line's blown up with people talking about where they're from. I mean, that's great, but unfortunately, like
I'll
now
get my
you're-
map out.
Well, now you're knocking down the text that I want to read. Chris in Nashville says Reddit says Derrick Henry is 100% a Hall of Famer. Well, if Reddit says it, then it must be true. Come on now. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. 615-737-1025. There are two news items surrounding the Tennessee Titans in the last 24 hours. One that everybody's talking about. The other that I think kind of has slipped under the radar a little bit. And I'm here to tell you, I think the one that slipped under the radar is a much, much, much bigger deal as to whether or not this team's going to be any good this year. We'll get to it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Good Friday afternoon, my friends. Big Joe live from Duck River Raceway Park in beautiful Lewisburg, Tennessee. The weather is cleared out. It's going to be a nice night for racing as we have the deep fried 75. We got racing all weekend long. It starts tonight at 6:30. 5 big-time races. Tomorrow, 5 big-time races as well. Here's the best part. We got drivers and teams from all over the country are here this weekend. Duck River Raceway Park, your high-speed family fun destination. If you've ever been here and you love racing, you need to come check this out this weekend. This is the 52nd season of racing at Duck River Raceway Park. For information, just log on our website at GameNashville.com. Come see us tonight at Duck River Raceway Park, located just minutes from Henry Horton State Park. This is Big Joe for 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Titans wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins injuring his knee. What more can you tell us about that?
He was spotted at practice on Wednesday wearing a wrap around his leg. He left practice before it ended, was examined, and now it has come out that he's going to miss at least 4 to 6 weeks, which means essentially he's out for the remainder of the preseason, and the team will hope to have him back for the start of the regular season. And that means as they have a new head coach in Brian Callahan taking over, that they're going to have to rely on a former first-round draft pick in Treylon Burks and Calvin Ridley. Good thing they went out and signed him, but they're going to be missing DeAndre Hopkins for the remainder of the preseason. He can't acclimate to that new offense. Setback for him, and they hope that he's ready for the start of the regular season.
That was Adam Schefter on ESPN. So there are two big Titans news items that are out there. The number one news item, everybody's talking about it, DeAndre Hopkins out 4 to 6 weeks. If it's 4 weeks, that means that he's not missing a single game. If it's 6 weeks, then it means he's missing 2. And when the news broke yesterday via Paul Kaharski, everybody's like, oh my God, what are they going to do? Okay, Treylon Burks, it's time to step up. And I was like, guys, it's 4 to 6 weeks. Might not mean a single game. DeAndre's a veteran. He's got tons of time with Will Levis. It'll be fine. You can plug, even if he misses 2 games. And I'm not saying I'd like this to go up against the Jets or to go up against Chicago, but even if he misses 2 games, still have Ridley, still have Boyd, still have Spears, still have Pollard. And you can stick either Burks or NWI in his spot. So it's not the end of the day. The second item, this morning, it was announced that Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT,
that PT had been activated from PUP. Remember, PT had the shoulder injury last year, played 3 games after the gambling suspension. Then all of a sudden, they spent all offseason saying, he could play right tackle. He could be this team's right tackle. I think it was Brian Callahan said in the offseason he has the traits. Then OTA started. No PT. Then they continued. No PT. Then minicamp. No PT. Then training camp started. Well, he's just cleaning up a knee. He'll be okay. No PT. Then the pads went on. No PT. Well, today it's official. The Titans had a conditioning session, according to Joe Rexrode, followed by a walkthrough, and PT was activated from PUP. One of those 2 stories is important. The other's not. For me, the important story is the return of Nicholas Petit-Frere. Why? Because, and I don't know how many times I have to say this, and I know a lot of people are going to get upset about this, the Titans don't have a right tackle. And I know that everybody is sick of the right tackle story. I get it. But the reason the right tackle story exists is because A, it happened, and B, to point out the blunt binary reality that if you don't have a position as important as right tackle, you'll stink. Before Floyd told me the right tackle story about how he didn't tell me the story, but it was the story. Before he told me that the 2015 Titans were going to stink simply by saying, we don't have a right tackle, I too figured that right tackle was a position that, you could figure out and be okay. You can figure it out, be okay. Because left tackle was the big position. Like, I know you can't fudge it at quarterback. I know that pass rusher is important, wide receiver. But you can just put Johnny at right tackle. He'll figure it out. And when he looked at me that one day and he said, we don't have a right tackle, I'm like, it's a pretty important position, huh? Right tackle. And I realized, okay, if you don't have a right tackle, you suck. And that's why I've told the story. And yet, for forever, the last 3 years, the Titans have just said, screw it. We don't need a right tackle. And John Robinson got away with it in 2021. But let's not kid ourselves. Right tackle has been an unmitigated disaster for the last 2 seasons, which takes me to PT. I am not a believer in Nicholas Petit-Frere. To be honest with you, I think he's the Tin Man. I just don't think. Wait a minute. Is it the Tin Man or the Scarecrow that doesn't have the heart?
I believe that is the Scarecrow, yeah.
The Tin Man doesn't have the brain? Or the Scarecrow doesn't have the brain?
I feel like the Lion. I don't know. I'm confused now.
Regardless, I don't think PT's got the dog inside of him to be a legitimate tackle in the NFL. But you can't quantify dog. Either you have it or you don't. I am betting that he does not. But he is the only player that is on this football team that has the talent to be a starting right tackle in the NFL. Now, obviously,
it's the cowardly lion who seeks courage.
It's the lion. He's the lion. I mean, it's as simple as that. Now, look, J.C. Latham has the talent to be a starting right tackle in the NFL, but J.C. Latham's playing left tackle. So take him out of it. I guess Skoronski, maybe. I mean, the Titans, whoever's the coach, I mean, they are just addicted to the idea that Skoronski can't play tackle. So I guess he can't play tackle. But PT's the only one on the roster outside of Latham that has the talent to be a starting NFL right tackle. And yet, he hadn't been very good. And he hasn't been very reliable. So it's year 3. So if he can't do it this year, then he's probably not going to do it. But as of right now, I can't for sure say, while I would bet against him, I can't for sure say he can't do it. I just think Nicholas Petit-Frere can't do it. But if you can't get on the field, then you absolutely can't do it. So now that he's healthy and he's back in the mix, now we get to see if, as many of you told me this offseason, when I kept telling the right tackle story, when I kept saying they don't have a right tackle, and I still today think they don't have a right tackle, many of you looked at me and said, Bill Callahan will fix it. Well, Bill Callahan can't fix it if he can't get on the field, and Bill Callahan can't coach him. So now that he's healthy and he's back in the mix, we will get to see. Pads on tomorrow, I would assume. We'll get to see. Can he play right tackle? Can Bill Callahan coach him up? Because while the Hopkins thing isn't a big deal to me yet, because I think he'll be fine, which means I don't think he'll miss a game. I don't think I think he'll be okay. But right tackle, if it's not PT, then they have to go searching the waiver wire. They have to go looking for a trade, or they're going to have to do what they did last year, and they're going to have to just roll through Scarbini after Scarbini and trying to find somebody that can stick. And that's dangerous. So on PT, let's all hope, let's all pray that I'm wrong, or else the Titans will have to quickly pivot. And not to say that I am the most gracious person in the world or graceful person in the world, but let me just say this. There's a lot of finger wagging that I like to do. When I am so staunchly adamant about something that you all push back on, oh no, Jared, when that happens and I get proven right, which happens more often than not, and you guys know it. And my favorite part about it is when that happens and you guys are like, damn it, Stillman was right. You know what I'm talking about. I would love to be wrong about this PT thing. But if I'm right, the Titans are in deep trouble. And I will not believe that a team that does not have a right tackle is capable of winning anything. No matter what you tell me, I was there when he said it. He looked me right in my eyes and said, they're on right tackle. Period. End of discussion. It's binary. You stink. This is the one shot. They've put themselves in the corner. This is the one shot they have at a right tackle. If not, it's going to be a free-for-all. So the DeAndre story, That I think will work itself out. That I don't think is that big of a deal. The PT story, Lord have mercy. Thank God he's back, because let's hope I'm wrong. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. A lot of you want to weigh in, so we'll get to your phones. Plus, I was absolutely tickled by something that TD relayed to us yesterday. Oh, was I tickled by this. And it does make me feel better about the Titans, at least in some regard. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
I got a text 2 days ago from Omar Kelly, who is with the All SI, All Dolphins, Sports Illustrated. They're however they have their deal, right? And
he's been covering the Dolphins for a long
time. We're talking Miami Sun Sentinel and other outlets. He's a long timer, right? But I got a text and he said, "Hey man, did Aaron Brewer have trouble with snaps when he was up there?"
Oh my God! Oh.
Yeah. So listen, I'll say this, forget the right tackle story, tell the center story, because this is an issue. Now, of course, yesterday in practice, there was a bad snap, but that wasn't Cushenberry, that was Cole Spencer. But this is an issue that has been solved with this team. Just the Aaron Brewer, the Lloyd Cushenberry. I forget the PFF ratings and all that foolishness. It's an upgrade. And just that upgrade and not having that pocket collapse. And I'm going to tell you a big example of that. Watching yesterday during the pass rushing part of it, where it's O-line, D-line, right? T'Vondre Sweat, Jeffrey Simmons, they both tried to bull rush on Cushenberry. And he just said, you know what, I'm going to drop this anchor and I'm going to settle in, and you're not going anywhere. And that is what's going to help Levis. And that is why you shouldn't be as concerned about it. You should still be concerned, but not as concerned about that O-line, just simply because of Cushenberry.
That was TD yesterday on the program. I was not ready for that, Ian. When TD said, yeah, I got a text from Omar Kelly. And I'm like, Omar Kelly? I'm like, he's been covering the Dolphins for like 25 years. I'm like, okay. He's like, was Aaron Brewer having problems with snaps in Tennessee? And it's like,
yeah.
I knew when the Dolphins signed Aaron Brewer, I said this could be the only combination in the NFL where the quarterback has a larger rear end than the center. But I knew, I was like, you'll see. Screw the Dolphins. You'll see. They're going to be paying a combined 60 million to Tua and Aaron Brewer.
Yeah, Tua better watch out because he doesn't like to get pressured up the middle. So we'll have to see about that one.
Week 4, here's the game plan. T'Vondre Sweat, you're
Simmons,
lining up right over. You know what I would do? I would take Simmons off the line. I would put him behind, lined up like a middle linebacker directly behind T'Vondre Sweat's butt. And I'd be like, all right, T'Vondre, you're going to push Aaron Brewer back, and Simmons, you're going to run as fast as you can right at the quarterback. Ready? Break. That's what I would do. So then I did a search. So I'm going to try to play this off the board here. So this was Teron Armstead, who apparently has to cover for how bad Aaron Brewer is. This is Teron Armstead details why some of the snapping mishaps occur in camp, specifically between Tua and Aaron Brewer as a new quarterback center combo.
The starters, specifically Tua and AP, they just get more time on task, get more reps. It's different. I was actually talking to Tua about it yesterday, and he was kind of explaining the differences between like AB's snap point compared to Connor's or Liam is all different. So maybe he got a squat or reach or, that only comes with time. So the more they get those reps, which they are, and then those will get cleaned up and disappear. But early in camp, you see some mishaps like that and some operational issues.
Okay. He's like, they're just getting used to each other. No, Aaron Brewer stinks. And again, that's why I said in the last segment, like when it comes to PT, I hope I'm wrong. But this is an example. Aaron Brewer's an example of something that you guys told me, hey, it'll be okay, Jared. It'll be okay. And I'm like, no, it will not be. And then when you saw Aaron Brewer's terribleness last year, you were like, oh, crap. Stillman was right. And I can't tell you how tickled I am to hear about the snap issue. No, they're working it. It's the snap point between AB and Connor. Yeah, from a real center to not a real center. And I do think that the Cushenberry thing I think TD is right. I do think that is kind of a big deal. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. One texter says, just be honest about the right tackle story, Jared. That's all I ask. At the time the GM told you the right tackle story, we had 0 right tackles on the roster. Like no humans that had ever played the position. Today, we have several. Good or not, you're taking what the GM said out of context. It does not apply here. So 2 weeks ago, I was in the Bahamas. And when I got back from the Bahamas, I had like an infection on my leg. It was either like a bug bite or I think what happened was I banged my leg into a beach chair and then didn't do anything about it. And I was out in the ocean like the whole week and everything else. And so the infection started to bother me a little bit. So I went to the doctor and my dad took me to he was like, here, I'll take you. I was like, you don't need to, but he took me. And so we're sitting there waiting for the doctor. And I don't remember exactly how we got to this topic, but I told him, I said, what's hilarious about all this with the Titan fans is I said, Titan fans, I tell the right tackle story over and over and over and over again. And I was talking to my dad. My dad knew Floyd a little bit, and he and Floyd got along very well. And I said, you know, when I tell that right tackle story, like, you know exactly what Floyd meant. You know exactly what he meant when he said it. And you know, just like I do, that this team doesn't have a right tackle. And my dad was like, yeah. And I was like, my favorite part about the right tackle story is now people will say, oh, well, that was different. And this is, you weren't there. I was there. I'm the only person that heard it. I've recited it 1,000 times. It has been applicable for the last 3 years, and it was applicable then. That team didn't have a right tackle. Last year's team did not have a right tackle. Dylan Radins is not a right tackle. You want to know how I know Dylan Radins isn't a right tackle? Because the second that a new coach got here, whose dad might be the greatest offensive line coach ever, they were like, yeah, move him off right tackle. They did not have a right tackle the year before. And now you're like, no, this team has plenty of right tackles. Like John Ojukwu, who has 66 NFL snaps under his belt. No, they don't have a right tackle. Now, let's hope I'm wrong. Doesn't happen very often, but I have at times been wrong before. And let's hope I'm wrong. Let's hope I'm wrong. And let's hope that PT can play right tackle. Because a bad Titans season, and that 2015 Titans team was 3-13 and held the number 1 pick in the following draft. That Titans season was a train wreck. And as much as you guys think I hate the Titans, or some people think I hate the Titans, I love the Titans. Just trust me. Trust me. Off of some of the actions this week, just trust me on this. But if you don't have a right tackle, you're not going to be good. And this goes back to the Aaron Brewer thing where, like, I told, what was funny was, Aaron Brewer played, spot started a couple times for Roger Saffold over the years, and the Titans let Roger Saffold go, and they just, they didn't sign a left guard, which I thought was a problem. And then Aaron Brewer went out there for practice, and in the practices where they weren't wearing pads, I'm like, this guy looks like a little baby. Who is this out here at left guard? And everybody tried to make excuses, just like they tried to make excuses last year when they moved him to center, just like old buddy with the Dolphins is making an excuse now. And all I kept thinking was, I don't like putting words in Floyd's mouth, but Ian, I don't think this is putting words in his mouth.
Okay.
John Robinson was the general manager, thought it was a good idea to have Aaron Brewer at left guard. And we obviously know the respect that Floyd had for John Robinson and John Robinson. I kept thinking, like, if Floyd was here and J-Rob went up to him and was like, yeah, I'm going to have a 270-pound left guard.
Brewer at center, yeah.
I could just hear.
Good luck with that.
Time. Just like, yeah, okay. Because the Titans kept coming up with all these excuses. Like, no. Here's the thing, though. He's tougher than a $2 steak. Every time. I heard it in my head. One text says, is the right tackle story applicable to any position that team is deficient or specific to the right tackle position? Is the right tackle spot pivotal? I mean, I think that, like, quarterback is probably important too. But I think, again, my takeaway from that was, if you don't have a right tackle, you suck. Not safety, not linebacker, not pass rusher, not right tackle. I assume Ian, I assume he probably felt the same way about left tackle, if I had to guess.
Probably.
But the story is specific to right tackle because that's what he said. We don't have a right tackle. So tomorrow they put the pads on. We'll see if PT can do it. Chad Withrow from Outkick joins us next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Good Friday afternoon, my friends. Big Joe live from Duck River Raceway Park in beautiful Lewisburg, Tennessee. The weather is cleared out. It's going to be a nice night for racing as we have the deep fried 75. We got racing all weekend long. It starts tonight at 6:30. 5 big-time races. Tomorrow, 5 big-time races as well. Here's the best part. We got drivers and teams from all over the country are here this weekend. Duck River Raceway Park, your high-speed family fun destination. If you've ever been here and you love racing, you need to come check this out this weekend. This is the 52nd season of racing at Duck River Raceway Park. For information, just log on our website at GameNashville.com. Come see us tonight at Duck River Raceway Park, located just minutes from Henry Horton State Park. This is Big Joe for 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. It's 5 o'clock, which means Chad Withrow joins us from Outkick. Chad with some strong words earlier this week on old Jeffrey Simmons after the drama that went down at Tuesday's practice and Simmons' subsequent apology on Wednesday. Chad, we start there. Your reaction.
I just don't buy Jeffrey Simmons when he said in his apology that that's not who I am. He said it over and over. That's just not who I am. That's not who I am. Well, we got a lot of evidence that it kind of is who you are. You've got an anger issue. You've got a temper issue. It goes back to high school with an incident. It goes back to allegedly spitting on Marshall Yonda and then allegedly spitting on a Buffalo Bills player and then getting yourself ejected from a training camp practice or what would have had you ejected in a game, but you check back in and get into another fight. And then you walk up to
You left out the Marlon Humphrey, by the way. I forgot about the Bobby Hart incident until you mentioned it on your show on Outkick. You left out the alleged fight that Marlon Humphrey told on his podcast between him and Odell Beckham in the tunnel in London.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there's another incident. But then, so in one practice, like let's just look at that snapshot of what happened the other day. He gets into a fight with J.C. Latham. Whatever. It's hot. Linemen hate it out there. Fights happen. But he takes a swing at him. It's not your typical little training camp skirmish. Takes a swing at him. Official says, would have been ejected from an NFL game. Not what you want from one of your supposed leaders. Then he gets into another fight when he comes back in 2 plays later. By the way, Brian Callahan should kick him out of practice at that point. He did not. Allowed him to go back in, gets another fight. Then he proceeds to leave the practice field and try to start a fight with Buck Rising over on the side. That is not the behavior of a leader of a football team. It's simply not. So when he comes over and he has this thing where he kind of likes to laugh and, that's just not who I am. And we're just going to move forward and we're going to move forward. You can say that all you want, but you're going to need to show people that you're moving forward because right now I look at the Titans and especially Jeffrey Simmons. Is there a softer team in the NFL when it comes to how they respond to any criticism? I mean, this is a losing football team over the last 2 years. Those are the facts. They're a losing football team. So they are going to be treated like a losing football team. In one of the more media-friendly markets in the league, everyone on that team seems to have an issue with any bit of criticism, and I don't get it. I thought it was embarrassing behavior by Jeffrey Simmons. I think the Titans fans that are defending Jeffrey Simmons, they're embarrassing themselves the way they're going to such great lengths to defend the guy. I think it's all crazy. And honestly, I think what you have 5-12 was your prediction, 4-13, Jared, for the season. I'm deducting 1 or 2 wins from my prediction of what this Titans team is based on what I've seen in training camp, because right now they look like a soft football team.
So that's what I was actually going to ask you on that, which is of this whole Simmons drama story. I mean, I got to tell you, it's a lot of fun on the radio, but does it matter?
Yeah, it matters. It absolutely matters. First off, I think he's going to do something stupid to get himself ejected from a game at some point, or he's going to cost the Titans. We talked about this with Taylor Lewan, who was a great player in his prime when he was healthy at left tackle, but he would do some things to hurt the football team with 15-yard penalties. I think we're going to see that with Jeffrey Simmons. I think if he's the leadership of this team, and I'm trying to point to other guys that are solid leaders of the team, you don't have it at quarterback yet. Will Levis has not done enough to earn that. If he's the leader of the team, I'm expecting bad things for the Titans. So, yeah, it matters. I mean, look, does him yelling at Buck Rising, is it going to matter when they play the Bears to open the season and how he's getting after Caleb Williams in the interior of that defensive line? No, probably not. But does it matter for the leadership of that locker room and what this team is currently and what they could become and how they carry themselves as professionals? Yeah, I think all that matters. And all we've seen from this team is losing the last 2 years. So if you're expecting a big turnaround and you're a Titans fan, I mean, good luck to you. I'm not seeing any evidence of that.
Chad is brought to you by A Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. I do actually think that the Buck incident may actually affect the Chicago game. And I will tell you, because he went on the Rich Eisen show and said, he was asked about playing Caleb Williams in week 1, and Simmons was like, oh, I can't wait to make fun of him for his painted nails. And now I'm like, with Jeffrey Simmons, who's a big trash talker, I mean, now anytime he tries to talk trash, A, the other team knows, talk it back and you'll get under his skin. But B, I think it's like if I was Caleb Williams and you tried to make fun of me for my painted nails, I would just laugh because everybody saw that video of you. Like what? Like you're some tough guy now? I actually think there might be an on-field component that hurt him from what happened on Tuesday.
I mean, could be. I kind of discount how much all that stuff matters when it comes to off-season talk about another player. But, I mean, could it lead to some things being said to Jeffrey Simmons that's going to set him off even more? You know, even in his apology, Jared, he talked about that switch that flips one way or the other. And he has to do a better job of flipping that switch off when it's time, when practice is over, and how that kind of gets him going for the games. Well, when it's on, I mean, it's full blast, right? It's a 12 on a scale of 1 to 10 when he's fired up and playing. And I don't think you turn that off. So if you don't have the ability to not spit on guys or not do something after a play that's going to put your team in jeopardy, then it's going to continue. I mean, I fully expect – do we really think that Jeffrey Simmons is going to get out there in games and not be an issue with his temper, not have an issue with some 15-yard penalties, not put himself at risk to get ejected by swinging at someone at some point? I mean, I think you're pretty foolish if you're expecting that at this point. And I fully expect that with Jeffrey Simmons. And it's going to become more and more of an issue when officials are looking for it more. Like you said, when the opposition is looking for ways to get under his skin more, knowing that he's going to do something stupid if you make him mad enough. I think all of these things will factor into the Titans' lack of success this upcoming season.
Chad Withrow's with us on the program. What do you make of Brian Callahan in all of this? There was another incident the next day. It wasn't a fight, but Kenneth Murray took a swing at Josh Wiley. And I just have to believe that by not punishing Simmons, it is essentially condoning the behavior, even though Callahan says that he does not condone that behavior. It does worry me a little bit. What do you think?
I think there's a big difference between Mike Vrabel and his coaching style and Callahan's. I believe that – I'm not saying it can't work with Callahan, right? Like there's plenty of examples across the league of very player-friendly guys, players, coaches that are pretty calm and not huge disciplinarians, not big yellers and screamers at guys or any of that, and they have a ton of success. So it could work with Callahan. But I do think the adjustment is interesting. Going from the football guy of all football guys and Mike Vrabel, who would dish out a lot of tough love and would not hesitate to get on somebody, to Brian Callahan. I think it's a big difference, and we're seeing the reaction of the Titans roster to that difference with the way they're acting in practice right now. So I think they got to figure out as a coaching staff, you know, how they're going to dole out discipline and how they're going to get to the respect of a roster that has respected the coaches before them because they demand respect and make them respect them at all times. It just doesn't come easy, and I don't think it's an automatic thing for NFL players that just because you're the head coach, they're going to respect you. So they're going to have to figure out how they're going to earn that respect from this team. And, you know, in fairness to Brian Callahan, I don't think we've seen enough yet to know whether or not they're good at that or not.
What do you make of the DeAndre Hopkins injury? 4 to 6 weeks. If it's 4 weeks, he doesn't miss a game. If it's 6 weeks, he misses the first 2.
It's huge because I would put DeAndre Hopkins on the list of possible leaders for this team, given that he's a really good veteran receiver. And if you're factoring in what the Titans could be on offense with Will Levis and what Will Levis could be in this league, I think DeAndre Hopkins is a huge part of that with Calvin Ridley. And with some of the additions on this Titans offense. So you take away DeAndre Hopkins, I think that's not going to be a good thing for the first part of this season for the Titans, if in fact he misses actual games.
Treylon Burks, I have said, is going to one day be inducted into the Practice Hall of Fame. He has been phenomenal so far through 2 weeks. He looks to be in great shape. Do you believe that Burks, if Hopkins is out for a couple games, could carry the load in his place? Or are you skeptical?
I mean, I'm not skeptical. I know he can't. I don't. I mean, he's going to be. You think he's going to be DeAndre Hopkins? Is that the player?
Fair.
I mean, no. Like he wins the Racing Math Award of great practice player. He's not going to do anything in the place of DeAndre Hopkins. I'm amazed at the blind confidence of Titans fans, quite frankly. With this team. I mean, it's been, you know, it was 3 years ago. Last 2 years have not been good where the Titans were a playoff team. And they were in that window where they had a chance to get to a Super Bowl or win one, and it didn't happen. Now, they're trying to rebuild that like any team in the NFL would, but I just haven't seen anything. I mean, I like Calvin Ridley. I love DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know on Will Levis. I like Lloyd Cushenberry and what I've seen from him with the Broncos. I mean, there are things to like about this team, no doubt about it. I like Jeffrey Simmons when he's not spitting on guys or he's not yelling at radio hosts. There are parts of the team to like, but, I mean, if any Titans fan thinks that Treylon Burks is going to magically fill in for DeAndre Hopkins, there's not going to be a drop-off, I think you're kidding yourself.
Chad Withrow is presented by Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. Coming up next, the hot seat. We'll do that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
there's been plenty of things that have been really good. I think for whatever reason around here, the bad things get magnified quite a bit, but there's been plenty of really good things that I've been very happy with. And so that's just part of it. We're still growing. We got a young quarterback. We got young linemen. We're still working through the process of it. And so we're on track. We're doing all the things we need to do the right way. And we'll keep coaching and we'll keep improving. So I don't have any real concerns at this point. I mean, we're doing what we're expected to do, I think, for the most part.
That was Brian Callahan saying, hey, there's a lot of good things around here. And for some reason around here, the bad gets magnified. Chad Withrow with us, presented by Moments Peace Salon and Day Spa. Chad, on the hot seat, we start right there. Number one, what does Brian Callahan mean when he says a lot of bad gets magnified around here?
It means that he is overly focused on anything that's negative that is said or written about his team, because you do not have to look far to find media that will say nothing but great things about your team and be overly
You mean like Malik Willis was a great pick?
Yeah, like Malik Willis is a great pick, because, hey, you got to find a quarterback, and you might as well just keep swinging. Even if you keep swinging and missing, doesn't matter. It's a great pick. We're asking the question, maybe Malik Willis could be a franchise quarterback. If you're going to be overly positive, and there's plenty of media in this market, it's way too positive at all times. They're fans, right? They're cheerleaders. And heck, we're all from somewhere. You and I are from Middle Tennessee.
Sure, I love the
Titans to do well. I think people mistake my negativity at times for I want the Titans to lose. I don't. I'd love to see the Titans win. It's great for Nashville when the Titans win. I root for the Titans to win games. But if you blindly go into it and all you talk about are the best case scenarios for every player and for the team in every single game, you are building up expectations to an unreasonable level. And if you are a coach and you point to anything that's remotely negative about your team, when there's all this media out there that's so positive about everyone, oh, don't worry about the right tackle situation, they'll figure it out because Bill Callahan is a genius. And even though Bill Callahan can't play right tackle at his age and his body type, he's going to be able to coach him up. And right tackle is not going to be a problem. That's stuff that's being said in local media. It's legitimately being said. So if you are Brian Callahan, you can find those things that are overly positive if you like them. When you hear something negative or read something negative, my advice to all coaches, especially when you have not coached a game as a head coach in the NFL, is to not pay them attention. Especially don't talk about them. Especially don't talk about them when you are in one of the media-friendliest markets in the NFL. This market is so media-friendly that anything negative has Titans fans. And look all over my Twitter account. There are Titans fans that believe this is truly a difficult market to play in with the media. It's not. It's not Philly. It's not New York. It's not a lot of places in the league. It's not Chicago. So it's crazy to think that way. And I think Brian Callahan sounds crazy when he says that in an interview.
When he said that in the press conference, I was disappointed because I really like Brian Callahan. I think Brian Callahan, in my dealings with him, which is not much, but I think he's a straight shooter. Like I really felt like, could you imagine Barry Trotz saying that? And when I heard that, I'm like, dude, put the Twitter down. Like, get back to, let's get to coaching. Okay, number two.
And Jared, that goes for everyone, right? Jeffrey Simmons, I did like that he said, I'm going to stop letting my family members send me tweets and things that are posted. Like, yes, get off of social media, especially at training camp. Now, if you're Jeffrey Simmons, and I said this on our show, but if you're Jeffrey Simmons and you want to wait until you're 8-2, or you're surprising everyone in the league with how good you are, and you want to make a little snide comment about what people said, fine. Like, take your victory lap at some point if you've been using that as fuel to your fire. I'm totally good with that. But when you are a combined 13-21, the way the Titans are over the last 2 years, do not take your shots during training camp. And Brian Callahan doesn't need to be saying any of that either.
Number two, Nicholas Petit-Frere has returned from the PUP list. Can Bill Callahan save the right side of the offensive line?
What perfect timing. What a great segue. No, he can't. I mean, he's a great coach, okay? And I do think that great coaches can make okay players good players. When you're a bad player, though, or you're below average, can he get them to average? Maybe, but I don't think average is going to cut it. I like what they've done at parts of the offensive line. I hope J.C. Latham's a great left tackle. Hasn't done it in a while, but I hope he turns into a great left tackle. So, no, I don't think Bill Callahan is going to be able to fix the offensive line situation. He'll help, but he's not going to fix it because they don't have a right tackle.
Number 3, this is the Pro Football Hall of Fame induction weekend. Will Derrick Henry make the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
I think he will. I absolutely think he's going to be a Hall of Famer by the time his career is over. I don't think statistically he's done. I think Baltimore is going to be great for him within that offense, and I think that's going to be a very relevant and good team that could, if they don't choke the way they did last year against Kansas City, could advance deep into the playoffs. So, yes, I feel pretty good in saying right now Derrick Henry will be a Hall of Famer.
Who would you put in the Hall of Fame first, him or Edgerrin James?
Whew. That's a tough one. It's a tough one because we haven't seen all of Henry's career right now. I would say Edgerrin James because we saw his entire career. But I think by the time Derrick Henry's done, I think it's going to be a no-brainer that it would be Derrick Henry first.
Derrick Henry or Curtis Martin?
Curtis Martin, for the same reason. I saw his longevity and his entire career.
Derrick Henry or Thurman Thomas?
Thurman Thomas, same reason. Thurman Thomas also played in 4 Super Bowls,
True.
Which to me, I know, wins and getting to a Super Bowl is not a running back stat, but I do weigh that pretty heavily when thinking about their success in the AFC with the Bills.
Derrick Henry or Corey Dillon?
Derrick Henry, already.
So everybody that you've picked ahead of Derrick Henry is in the Hall of Fame. Corey Dillon is not in the Hall of Fame. So I feel like Derrick's right there on that cut line. And that's why the Ravens run might be pretty important.
Well, and Jared, some of this to me is just projection. Right now, I think that he's accurately on that cut line. But I think when he's done playing, he's going to be squarely in.
Okay, number 4. U.S. men's soccer has been beaten by Morocco 4-0, and they are done in the Olympics. Will the U.S. ever be good at soccer?
No. No. This was the under-23 team in the Olympics, and all I keep hearing about is how the young talent and how dominant the young Americans are going to be and how they're starting to round into form. And look, kudos for getting to the knockout stage of the Olympic tournament for the first time since 2000 in 24 years, first time since the Sydney Olympics way back in 2000. But losing 4-0 to Morocco is just awful. Funny story, our producer, who's the biggest soccer fan that I know, he was trying to go dark on the game that started at like 8 a.m. local time, and he did not know what happened until I made a note in our rundown about the disaster that is U.S. soccer. And then I had to break it to him live on air that they lost 4-0 to Morocco. And if you could have seen his face drop when he heard that, he had recorded it. He was going to watch it when he got home. But I saved him the time and the agony of watching that 4-0 beatdown. So I feel like he owes me a thank you.
Okay. Number 5. Kobe Bryant's Staples Center locker was fetched $2.9 million at an auction. What is one sports item that you would pay an absolute fortune for?
Whew. That's a good one. Gosh, I'm trying to think of one. It can't be just like a random autographed ball or anything like that.
Yeah, because like even a Babe Ruth autographed ball's not going for like $5 million.
Yeah, I would love something from the '98 season of Tennessee. I'd say like a piece of the goalpost, that was taken down in the Florida game in '98. I'm trying to think of something that would be special and unique in a special moment of my sports life. And I think for Tennessee fans, the '98 season is one that sticks out for a number of reasons. I remember when I was in college, Billy Ratliff lived above me, and Billy Ratliff had the football that he fell on when Clint Sterner fumbled in 1998, where Tennessee improbably beat Arkansas, where they were just trying to milk the clock and win the game, and that propelled them to the national championship. So I remember looking at that ball in his apartment in Knoxville at the time when he was in grad school and thinking that would be a cool piece of memorabilia. So you know what? I'll go with that. The football that Clint Sterner fumbled and Billy Ratliff fell on, and Tennessee eventually went on to the national championship.
You know what's crazy is Floyd had the Music City Miracle Ball at his house. I don't think anybody knew that, but I was like, there was one random, they were all his game balls or whatever, and there was one random football, and I was like, what is that ball? It's the Miracle Ball. I was like, oh, okay. By the way, a Babe Ruth baseball fetches $220,000. An autographed Babe Ruth baseball. Okay. Skip Bayless is out at Fox Sports 1 after today. Is Skip Bayless's career over?
I don't think so. I think he's going to do something. I don't know if it's going to be in linear television. I think he's going to do something online, whether he starts his own company or joins up with someone else. I feel like this is not going to be the end for him. I'm interested where Fox is going next. I'm reading all these Andrew Marchand reports and things about Nick Wright being the future of Fox.
By the way, can I say they're talking about Danny Parkins, who works for Porth in Chicago?
Yeah.
He sucks. Like, I got more talent in my pinky finger than he's got in his he sucks. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say, like, I don't know if jealous is the right word, but angry would be how I feel, because he sucks. So just put that out there.
By the way, I was amazed. I'd heard the name before, but I've never even heard him on anything. And I saw Danny Parkins is being targeted by Fox to be the next Skip Bayless. And I'm thinking, man, this is quite the rise for Danny Parkins from that spot to national fixture on, one of these Colin Cowherd, Stephen A. Smith type shows.
Well, he went to college with Nick Wright and their buddies, and I think that's how that.
I think there's a talent to this. And I think Nick Wright's pretty good at what he does for sure. I think Skip Bayless is great at what he did. I think Stephen A. Smith is good at what he does. I also think there's a number of people who could do it if given the opportunity. I'm with you, Jared, and I was surprised that it was Danny Parkins was the guy. Apparently is the guy that's being selected to do it. I don't know if it's going to be good or bad, again, because I don't know much about him and haven't really seen him, but I was a little surprised when I read that.
I feel quite strongly that Skip Bayless was just I just think that they messed up. Like they should have replaced Shannon Sharp with somebody better, and they didn't. They put in Keyshawn, who stinks, and I think that was that on the Skip Bayless front. Chad Withrow joining us as always for the hot seat presented by a Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. Chad, have a great weekend. We will talk next week. This is our final weekend without Titan football.
We are so close, Jared. I'm excited for all of it, and I hope all of your listeners, has a great weekend.
All right, Chad Withrow joining us on the program as he always does. Again, maybe it sounds jealous, this Danny Park. He's terrible. He filled in for Cowherd for a couple of days, and I'm like, so Danny Parkins was doing afternoon drive in Kansas City, and then he got hired in Chicago, and he's been doing afternoon drive in Chicago for like, I don't know, a year, 2 years, or no, maybe more like 4 or 5. But he's not very good. And he's one of those sports hosts that like thinks it's cool to not talk sports, which I think, again, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, I think you guys are in the car looking to hear about sports, and they're going to put him on Fox. Make that another Fox show that I will not watch. When Skip and Shannon were doing their thing, I watched it. Cowherd, I can watch. Everything else, no thank you. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, the first Stillman and Company 53-man Titans roster. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game.
Good Friday afternoon, my friends. Big Joe live from Duck River Raceway Park in beautiful Lewisburg, Tennessee. The weather is cleared out. It's going to be a nice night for racing as we have the deep fried 75. We got racing all weekend long. It starts tonight at 6:30. 5 big-time races. Tomorrow, 5 big-time races as well. Here's the best part. We got drivers and teams from all over the country are here this weekend. Duck River Raceway Park, your high-speed family fun destination. If you've ever been here and you love racing, you need to come check this out this weekend. This is the 52nd season of racing at Duck River Raceway Park. For information, just log on our website at GameNashville.com. Come see us tonight at Duck River Raceway Park, located just minutes from Henry Horton State Park. This is Big Joe for 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Some of your frontliners miss a little time at DB. Who are some guys that maybe stepped up, taking advantage of little reps, you think?
On the defense?
Defensive back.
I think all of them, really. I mean, to see, Matt Jackson make some plays today, to see Trey Avery really kind of challenge some of our top receivers and do a really good job. Jarvis Brownlee as a young player playing in there has been good. I think all those guys have had opportunities to step up. And again, there's going to be plenty more of them. And so the key is going to be how well can we sustain it and how consistent can we stack these days? Are we riding a roller coaster where we're making good plays and giving up big ones? Or are we consistently making the right plays at the right time? So that's the fun part about training camp.
All right, that was Brian Callahan talking about potential guys they could have, who's fighting for spots, guys that are trying to make their way through there. And that was Matthew Jackson, kid from Hillsborough High School, right down the street by my house, who was on the team last year, going to fight for a spot this year. So we're going to do this all throughout the preseason, and we're going to have our first official Jared Stillman and Company Titans 53-man roster. You ready for this? It's been all morning. This is very, very hard. It's the hardest job of a coach or a GM's job is to have to make the cuts. Fortunately, for the players, it's not hard for me to make the cuts. All right, let's start right away. Quarterback, 3, Levis, Rudolph, Willis. I do not think that there's really any question about that. I don't think there's any question about the order of that. I'm not getting carried away by Malik Willis looking better, which he does. I'm not going to think that there's like some quarterback controversy. I'm also not one of these people that is just dump Malik. Malik's got to go. It doesn't make any sense. Malik's money's fully guaranteed, so I have no interest in getting rid of Malik. And the new third quarterback rule makes me think that if you've got 3 quarterbacks under contract and you're paying all 3, you might as well keep all 3. So those are the 3 quarterbacks. Running back, 3. Normally I'd like to go 4 here, but I'm going to go 3, Spears, Pollard, and Chestnut. And the reason I'm going with those 3, the other guys that are on the roster, whether it's Jabari Small or Hassan Haskins or any of those guys, I mean, they could just be put on the practice squad. And now with the practice squad rules, just elevate them up. So 3 running backs, and we know they're going to use 2, Spears and Pollard. Wide receiver, 6, Hopkins, Ridley, Boyd, Burks, NWI, and Jaquan Jackson. And the reason Jaquan Jackson's on the team is because they drafted him. That's why he got the nod over Kyle Phillips. I am sick and tired of waiting on Kyle Phillips. I'm sure if Joe Rexrode had his way, Kyle Phillips would get another shot because there were kind of some end of the roster decisions that could be made here. I could have gone with a 7th receiver. And I thought about going with a 7th receiver in light of the Hopkins news. But once again, all the other potential guys, whether it's Phillips or Bryce Oliver or whomever, Mason Kinsey, all those guys probably get through to the practice squad, and then I can just bring them up on game day if I need to. If Hopkins isn't active for the first game, I can call somebody up. But I feel, again, that I've got Hopkins, Ridley, Boyd, my 3 starters, Burks, who is the first guy off the bench, and then NWI, who can literally play any position, and I'd be stunned if NWI doesn't make this team. If NWI doesn't make this team, we might need to have a congressional hearing or something like that. Tight end, 4, Josh Wiley, Chigakonkwo, Nick Vannett, and David Martin Robinson, an undrafted free agent who seems to just kind of keep showing up in training camp. And even though I don't think the Titans will feature the tight end much, I think they'll take 4. That's why I went 3 running backs, 4 tight ends. Offensive line. Now, this could very much fluctuate between now and opening kickoff in a month and a couple of days because of waiver claims, and maybe there's a trade. Maybe there's a team out there that's looking for an extra slot receiver, punt returner, and so Kyle Phillips isn't going to make your team, so you trade him. It's all possible. Offensive line, 9, Latham, Skoronski, Cushenberry, Charles, Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a. PT, Jaron Christian, Radence, Brunskill, and Leroy Watson. John Ojukwu did not make the cut. And I know it's crazy because as of right now, he's the starting right tackle. Now, PT did get called up off the pup today. And even though Bill Callahan said he wasn't sure if PT was going to go right into the starting lineup, I would be stunned if PT doesn't go into the starting lineup, since PT is kind of the only real option that they have at right tackle, or at least that has any sort of NFL talent, if they are for sure going to put their foot down and say no on Radence at right tackle. So the one thing that this does do is I didn't put Corey Levin on there. So Corey Levin was in the mix, as a backup center. I think they'll go with Brunskill as the backup center. That's why he makes the team. And Watson will make the team because Bill Callahan told me during OTAs that he thinks that Watson can play every position on the offensive line, which means that it must have been somewhat valuable on some level or another to Bill Callahan. And if it's valuable enough to Bill Callahan, they're going to do it. So that's the 9 guys on the offensive line as of now. Defensive line, 6, Simmons, Sweat, Joseph Day, Coburn, Bohanna, and Marlon Davidson. It was between Davidson and TK McClendon for that last spot. I went with Marlon Davidson, just given the fact that Rand's dropped his name a couple of times and the draft pedigree. Not that that's that big of a deal, but tie goes to the runner. Marlon Davidson is on the team. TK McClendon is not. Outside linebacker. So there's 4 that are going to be on the 53, but there are 5 total because Arden Key is going to be suspended. So 4, Landry, Shane Ray, Rashad Weaver, 5. Landry, Ray, Weaver, Rush, and Jalen Harrell, the 7th round draft choice out of Michigan. And there's 6 total because Arden Key is suspended. So whether it's Caleb Murphy or Jalen Harrell, that last outside linebacker spot, that guy's going to make the team simply because Arden Key is suspended for the first 6 games. And that is assuming that PK's report is correct and that the Titans will, in fact, be without Arden Key for the first 6 games of the year, which, again, who knows? They can always appeal or something. Inside linebacker, 4. Kenneth Murray, Jack Gibbons, Cedric Gray, and Otis Reese IV. Otis Reese IV was one of the last guys to make the roster. I actually watched last year when he played in the season finale against Jacksonville, and I noticed him a lot around the ball, and I felt like, he could be a good backup inside backer / special teamer. But then he played well in that game, and people were like, he could start. And I'm like, no, he's not starting. So with Gibbons starting, which again, I don't like, but it is what it is. And you can fudge it inside backer. And Kenneth Murray is either going to be an impact player for this team, or he's going to go down with Burks and Chig into the practice Hall of Fame. I do have to say those two will be the starters. Cedric Gray clearly going to be a special teamer, but that'll take some time, which was to be expected when he was drafted, unlike a lot of you that thought, he can be the green dot as a 4th-round pick. I'm like, oh, God. So that's 4 inside backers. Corner, 7. What's the old saying? Can never have enough corners. Sneed, Awuzie, McCreary, Brownlee, Avery, Judy Lawley, and Caleb Farley. And I think Caleb Farley makes the team for 2 reasons. Number 1, Caleb Farley's contract is guaranteed. Again, that's the thing about a draft choice, is that money, you can cut them, but you're going to pay them. And so Caleb Farley, I think, has shown enough that it's like, don't waste the however much money they've got invested, $6 million for the next 2 years. Don't waste the $6 million if you don't have to. And I think Farley, again, I mean, Farley probably stinks, but Farley has shown, the effort. And as I said earlier today, I'm rooting for Farley. I'm rooting for Radence. I'm rooting for Malik. I'm rooting for Burks, the guys who have been kicked down and have really just kept fighting and fighting and fighting. And because of the guaranteed money, Farley makes the team. Safety, 4. Hooker, Adams, Molden, and Jackson. And Matthew Jackson was kind of one of the end of the roster guys. You could go with another one of these, Shaim Carter, whatever, but he did have 2 interceptions in practice. And as I've said, even though I'm not going to get carried away this year when it comes to practice has to mean something, right? Like, if practice doesn't mean anything, if Matthew Jackson can pick off 2 passes, picks off the starting quarterback of the Titans, and it doesn't mean anything, then what's the point of practice? So Matthew Jackson makes the team. And then the special teams, 3, Folk, Stonehouse, and Cox. So again, the 53-man roster as of now, and this will change. We probably won't do one next week. We might ahead of the San Francisco game, depends on how practice goes. But we'll definitely do one the next week after the San Francisco game. And some guys may earn their name up the list. But as of right now, quarterback, Levis Rudolph Willis. Running back, Spears, Pollard, Chestnut. Wide receiver, Hopkins, Ridley, Boyd. Burks, NWI, and Jackson. That is Jaquan Jackson, not Kieris Jackson. Tight end, Wiley, Okonkwo, Vanette, and David Martin Robinson. Offensive line, Latham, Skoronski, Cushenberry, Charles, Nicholas Petit-Frere, KPT, Christian, Radence, Brunskill, and Watson. Defensive line, Simmons, Sweat, Joseph Day, Coburn, Bohanna, and Davidson. Outside linebacker, Landry, Ray, Weaver, Rush, and Harrell. Arden Key is suspended. Inside linebacker, Murray, Gibbons, Gray, and Reese. Corner, Sneed, Awuzie, McCreary, Brownlee, Avery, Judy Lawley, and Farley. Safety, Hooker, Adams, Molden, Jackson. Kicker, Folk, punter, Stonehouse, and the long snapper is Morgan Cox. That is the first official Stillman and Company Titans 53-man roster. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. That's 615-737-1025. Coming up next, I'm very, very excited about something that is not happening this weekend. But this weekend is the last of this. We'll explain what that is. We'll do it next. Fireball Hot Take Friday, 615-737-1025. Someone in Company, 1025, 106 through the game.
Jason Big Joe, weekdays at 9 on 1025 and 1063 The Game.
Oh, yes. Okay. I love what you've done with the place.
Thanks, my guy.
Yeah.
I still got to show you the 3rd floor.
Okay. Send me on up.
That's where the action happens, man. Now, Sarah calls this the panic room.
The Panic room? Okay, well, I didn't know that you were a doomsday prepper.
Oh, no, I'm not. It's just where I watch my football games.
Right. Oh, snap. Who's playing?
Wait. No. Did he get picked? No way.
Yeah.
Yo, what are you doing? Get him.
Oh, my.
Are you seeing this?
Yep, I'm seeing it, yeah.
No, please, somebody tackle him.
Oh.
He's running to the end zone.
Okay.
No. Oh,
Wow.
I can't breathe.
Oh, boy.
I can't breathe.
Where's Sarah? Sarah!
AT&T Fiber with All-Fi covers your whole house, even your aptly named panic room. Get AT&T Fiber with All-Fi and live like a gagillionaire.
Limited availability. Coverage requires AT&T Wi-Fi extenders at additional charge.
Willie Donick here to let you know about the perfect gift. Lavish, luxurious, yet affordable, breathtaking, and joy-inspiring, yet simple for you. The gift card from A Moment's Peace. A spa day she customizes exactly the way she wants. Give her the gift she won't buy herself. An escape, a little bit of luxury, something special that shows how much you care. The perfect gift from A Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa in Cool Springs. Call or go online at amomentspeace.com/thegame.
Hey, it's Roger Moore, CEO of Loan Pronto. If you're like me, you're getting crushed by rising costs of everything these days. I get it. It's brutal, and credit card rates are ridiculous and going higher. That's why at Loan Pronto, we launched our Express Equity Line of Credit to bring you the relief you and your family need, using your home, your most valuable asset. We've helped thousands of people like you get fast relief with cash. The average homeowner who does this gets tens of thousands in just days and is able to save $850 per month in overall expenses. I'm talking life-changing money, your money that you have access to right now. Listen, if you're ready to get control of your finances and get off the hamster wheel, call Loan Pronto. You can get approved for Express Equity Line of Credit in just minutes, and we can get your cash in less than a week. Stop digging a deeper credit card hole today. Call Loan Pronto now. 615-499-5780. 615-499-5780. LoanPronto.com. 615-499-5780.
Equal housing lender. NMLS 166-1781. Subject to lender approval. NMLS consumeraccess.org.
Saturday night, August 10th, it's back to school in an old school way at Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway on Fast Tire Family Night. Both tracks, 8 divisions, led by the ultra-competitive limited late models on the quarter mile, along with front runners, Crown Vics, Legends, and more on the 5/8 Super Trucks and a 100-lap Pro Late Model Shootout. Gates open at 3, green flag at 5, kids 11 and under free. Fast Tire Family Night at the fairgrounds. You've got to be there.
Every business faces challenges, but complicated, expensive, and uncertain shipping shouldn't be one of them. With USPS Ground Advantage from the United States Postal Service, you can avoid all the noise. No more unexpected surcharges, hidden fees, or complex rate structures. It's just easy, cost-effective, and dependable shipping. Tune your business's frequency to success and turn shipping to your advantage. Learn how at USPS.com/advantage. USPS Ground Advantage. Simple, affordable, reliable.
You can always join the show by calling or texting at 615-737-1025. Our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
This is Stillman and Company on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. So, Ian, I think you could agree that I probably had a little bit of a weird tease to end the last segment here on this just wonderful Fireball Hot Take Friday. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a great weekend that is ahead of us. In fact, I haven't checked the weather. You know, this would be traditionally a great weekend for the lake, but as Robbie and Rexroad announced to the world earlier today, my puppy got neutered today, which, by the way, was very traumatizing to take my puppy in there and to know what I was about to do to him and to see his innocent little puppy face and him to not have any idea. But so he'll probably be recovering, so I probably won't be out on the lake much this week, although, my goodness, the weather looks fabulous. But this is the last weekend without any semblance of Titan football. Next weekend, the Titans host the San Francisco 49ers at home in the preseason. Not that I'm the biggest preseason fan in the world. Probably won't go to the game, though I might. I don't know. I haven't decided. Probably won't. But next Saturday, we have Titan football. The Saturday after that, we have Titan football. The week after that, we have Titan football. Then there's that week that is kind of off and depressing because it's Labor Day, but we get college football that weekend, which is good enough. You know, we get a week of college football, then we get the holiday, then it's Chicago. Then it's Titan football every week until the bye. And so this is your last weekend without any Titan football whatsoever. And then again, you'll have real football with college football in that week between Labor Day and when the NFL season starts. So here's my advice to everybody. If you've got something you need to get done, do it this weekend. Because again, now look, it's going to be beautiful outside, but this is the weekend because this time next week, we got a football game now. It's like I tell people, hey, it's what are you doing on Saturday? The Titans are playing. That's a big deal. And then when you really factor in that after the Titan season's over, we have the playoffs, which not that we've done the official Stillman and Company predictions. We've done the Stillman and Company expectations, and the expectations are that the Titans will not make the playoffs, but we haven't predicted whether or not they'll make the playoffs. But after that, we have the playoffs. Then, you know, we're all in on hockey season. We don't have boring weekends for a while, which is a very, very exciting place to be. So again, this is the last weekend without Titan football. I did not watch the Hall of Fame game yesterday. I guess I probably could have. And I'm sure there are probably some people out there that did watch it just because you wanted the nostalgia of football. I saw on Twitter, I saw the video of the first kickoff with that new kickoff rule, which I really don't think it's that big of a difference. And I know, you know, there's going to be some, well, you know, it used to go to the 25 or the 30. Now it's going to go to the 25. And so whatever. But this is the last weekend. Think about how far we've come over the last however many weeks it's been. I remember sitting there, minding my own business in Vegas at the Super Bowl, and it was the Friday. And if you've ever been to Radio Row at the Super Bowl, you know that on Friday, if you do an afternoon show, and Radio Row at the Super Bowl has really turned into what Chad, you know, I thought coined really well, streaming row, where it's like all these podcasts and, you know, bullcrap, not actual radio shows. But most people get out of town as soon as possible on Friday. Friday used to be the big day at Radio Row. Now it's not as big. In fact, this year in New Orleans, I'm actually thinking about flying back Thursday night and, you know, getting back home on Thursday night and doing the show from Nashville on Friday. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But anywho, I do feel like that last Friday at Radio Row, I was like, my God, I'm so depressed because it's the last football game. And yeah, there's hockey, and you know I love hockey, but it's not the same as football. And here we are, this last Saturday. I have so many things to do in my life, including care for a recovering puppy who no longer has his testicles. But there is joy in the fact that this is the last Fireball Hot Take Friday without Titan football. This is the last weekend without Titan football. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we made it. Congratulations. Enjoy the weekend. That's it for us. Stillman & Company. We will see everybody Monday at 2 as we start the first week of Titans football. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Rami and Retro, tomorrow morning at 6 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
Get the 75-inch 4K Google TV for only $399 this week at Electronic Express.
Barlines is conveniently located inside the Omni Nashville Hotel across from Bridgestone Arena. Barlines is the perfect spot for Preds and arena concert fans year-round. Catch your favorite team on one of their 22 jumbo flat-screen HD TVs. Barlines offers their award-winning menu of delectable Southern-inspired dishes and handcrafted Tennessee libations. Their team takes pride in using locally produced foods and regional spirit vendors to create offerings that are uniquely Nashville. Park at the Omni and enjoy Barlines before and after Bridgestone events.
Trust your pets with Coddle Vet Clinic at East Nashville in the heart of Inglewood for compassionate care and your fur baby's optimal health. From vaccinations to health checkups with on-site pharmacy, teeth cleaning, grooming, and state-of-the-art surgical procedures, trust Coddle Vet, now offering boarding. Visit coddlevetclinic.com to learn more. We know you love your pet, and at Coddle Vet Clinic, pets are family.
Now, your Game Center update.
Brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Training camp keeps rolling on for the Tennessee Titans as the team had a closed day of work on Friday. After an up-and-down rookie season that saw him change positions to guard, offensive lineman Peter Skoronski shared how he's feeling going into year 2.
Yeah, I feel way more comfortable. Like I said, like so many more tools in my toolbox as a guard from coach, and just having a year down in terms of just the field position and the speed of the game, I think is way more comfortable with that too. So feels like night and day from last year, but obviously plenty more work to do.
In some more offensive line news, the Titans announced today that offensive tackle Nicholas Petit-Frere officially passed his physical and has been removed from the PUP list, which makes him eligible to return to the practice field. And the injury news from yesterday, wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks with a knee strain. In Olympic action today, Team USA set a new world record in the 4x400 mixed relay, and the Nashville Sounds continue their series at Gwinnett tonight, the AAA affiliate of the Atlanta Braves. First pitch is set for 6:05 on 94.9 The Fan. From the Game Nashville studios, this is Ian Safar.
I'm Fox 17 meteorologist Brett Luna. We've had several days of showers and thunderstorms over the past few weeks, but we're finally going into a drier pattern this weekend. We'll see plenty of sun